Georgia is a land of moss-draped oaks, rolling hills, and stately mansions that hint at grandeur and old money. Yet, beneath the polished floors and ornate facades, a darker history festers. Many of these mansions are built over forgotten graves, their foundations resting upon secrets long buried. Tonight, we will explore 25 of Georgia's most haunted mansions, where ghostly figures roam the halls, doors slam without cause, and whispers from the past echo through opulent rooms. Each mansion has a story of tragic deaths, betrayal, curses, and spirits that refuse to rest. As we walk through these ancient halls, remember, the grandeur may be only skin-deep. Beneath the elegance lies a darker truth, and the dead may not be as silent as we believe. The Waldhauermoss Mansion in Thomasville stands like a relic out of Tamia, its towering columns, sweeping porches, and ornate windows cloaked in equal measures of southern charm and unsettling mystery. Though it appears grand and serene from the outside, those who have stepped inside speak of a different truth. The mansion was built over an old burial ground, a decision made generations ago and whispered about ever since. Beneath the polished floors and restored hallways lies a forgotten resting place, and many believe the souls disturbed during construction never found peace again. Visitors and guests have long reported strange occurrences, and every story adds weight to the mansiona's eerie reputation. Shadowy figures glide through the halls, drifting silently past open doorways and across dim corridors. These figures never make a sound. They simply appear as dark shapes in the corner of ogni's visione before fading away like smoke. Some guests insist they have seen them clearly. Tall silhouettes lingering at the end of a hallway, small forms standing near the staircase, or pale outlines crossing through the parlor even when the house is empty. Doors in the mansion seem to have wills of their own. During tours or private stays, people hear sharp slams echoing through the halls, loud enough to rattle the windows. At first, they assume it must be the wind, but the mansion is solidly built, and the interior doors sit far from open windows or drafts. More unsettling is that the slams often happen in quick succession, as if Summonia or something is walking through the house, closing each door behind them with force. Guests who follow the sounds often find the rooms empty, their doors firmly shut, and the air heavy with a chill that does not match the weather outside. There is also the persistent sensation of being touched by unseen hands. Many visitors describe feeling a light brush against their arms or backs as they walk through the mansion, as though someone is gliding past them in a narrow hallway. The touch is never harsh, but always colda, unnervingly colda, and often lingers long after the person has moved on. One guest recalled feeling slender fingers graze her wrist while she was looking at an old photograph in the upstairs study. When she turned, expecting another visitor behind her, she found only an empty room and a faint whisper of cold air fading down the hallway. The mansiona's long corridors are notorious for amplifying these sensations. The deeper one walks into the house, the colder the atmosphere becomes. Some swear the temperature can drop suddenly, enough to raise goosebumps. Others say the air thickens, making their breaths feel heavy. Even the bravest visitors admit that certain rooms carry an oppressive feeling, as if filled with memories that refuse to let go. One of the most commonly reported experiences occurs on the grand staircase. People ascending or descending often stop suddenly, claiming they felt someone brush past them or stand behind them. Some report hearing faint footsteps just ahead or behind, too soft to be an actual person, but too distinct to dismiss. A few have felt a sudden hand press lightly against their back, as though guiding Thema, or in some cases, warning them not to proceed further. Late at night, when the mansion is quiet, guests lying in bed sometimes hear the soft shuffle of footsteps on the hardwood floors. These sounds do not follow a normal pattern. Instead, they drift from room to room, pausing outside bedroom doors before moving on. Some hear whispering low, indistinct murmurs, as if several voices are speaking just beyond the walls. Lights flicker, curtains sway without a breeze, and shadows shift in ways that defy explanation. Local historians believe the haunting stems from the burial ground beneath the mansion, a place that once held generations of families whose identities blurred into history long before construction began. When the foundation was laid, workers uncovered bones and artifacts they did not fully understand. Though efforts were made to rebury what was found, the damage had already been done. Many claim the spirits were disturbed, uprooted, and left wandering through the halls of the home built atop their resting place. Despite the paranormal activity, the Waldhauer Moss Mansion remains a place of beauty. Sunlight pours through tall windows during the day, illuminating the furniture and artwork. Yet even in daylight, visitors feel watched. They hear faint whispers in quiet corners, and occasionally catch sight of a shadow skimming across a wall. The mansion's dual naturia, charming by day, haunted by night, only deepens its mystique. One man recounted hearing a Childa-esque laughter echo from an empty hallway. Another visitor described waking in the night to see a faint silhouette standing at the foot of the bed, unmoving and silent. A tour guide claimed that while locking up one evening, she felt someone grip her hand so firmly she nearly fell, only to look down and see nothing holding her. The Waldhauer Moss Mansion is more than an old home. It is a doorway between past and present. The shadowy figures gliding through the halls, the doors slamming without cause, and the cold, unseen hands brushing against passers-by all serve as reminders that the ground beneath the mansion was never meant to be disturbed. The spirits linger, restless and watchful, waiting for Summonia Enyania to hear them and acknowledge the lives forgotten beneath the foundation. Hay House in Macon rises above the landscape like a grand monument to another era. Its Italian Renaissance architecture and sprawling interior whispering stories of wealth, history, and lingering spirits. Known as the A Palace of the South, the mansion dazzles visitors with sweeping staircases, vaulted ceilings, and elaborate details carved long before modern tools existed. Yet despite its beauty, a chilling presence settles over the mansion each night, transforming it from an architectural marvel into one of the stadia's most quietly haunted landmarks. As darkness falls over Macon, the whispers begin. They drift through the halls in a rhythmic pattern, rising and falling as if multiple voices are engaged in a hushed discussion. Visitors who have stayed after daylight hours say the murmurs grow steadily clearer, though never understandable. Some believe the whispers come from the former inhabitants of the home, long gone yet unwilling to abandon the space they once filled with life. Others think the mansion itself remembers, replaying fragments of sound from days filled with music, conversation, and celebration. Phantom figures frequently appear in the mansion after dusk, most often dressed in elegant 19th-century attire. Witnesses report seeing men in formal coats and women in flowing gowns drifting through the grand ballrooms or pausing at windows as though waiting for someone to return. These figures are most commonly seen from a distance, standing behind a curtain on the second floor, crossing the ballroom with a slow, gliding stride, or appearing in the reflection of a mirror before vanishing when observed directly. Their movements are graceful, almost rehearsed, as though they are still living out the routines of lives long ended. One of the most common sightings occurs in the dining room, where a well-dressed gentleman is said to appear at the head of the long table. He stands silently, hands folded behind his back, surveying the room as though preparing to host a gathering. Some guests claim he turns his head ever so slightly when approached, only to fade into nothingness a moment later. The apparition is so clear and lifelike that a few visitors assumed he was part of the staff until he disappeared right in front of them. The Grand Ballroom is another hotspot for ghostly encounters. During the day, its polished floors and towering windows shine with natural light, hinting at the lavish parties once held there. But at night, the atmosphere changes. People have reported hearing the faint strains of old music drifting across the room, accompanied by the subtle creak of floorboards as if dancers are moving in synchronized steps. Some claim to have seen full apparitions gliding across the ballroom floor, their forms translucent yet unmistakably human. A woman in a long, shimmering gown is said to appear most often, her posture regal, her presence commanding, and her expression forever unreadable. The windows of Hay House hold their own mysteries. Locals walking past after dark sometimes notice faces peering out from behind the curtains. Faces that are pale, old-fashioned in dress, and far too still to be living. These sightings often occur on the upper levels, particularly near the tower room. Residents in the area say that when the mansion is supposed to be empty, a figure can still be seen gazing down at the street, watching quietly before retreating into the shadows. The whispers throughout the mansion create one of the most unsettling sensations for visitors. Many describe feeling as though they have walked in on a conversation. They hear their names called from behind closed doors, or detect a breath of cold air brushing past their ears as whispers swirl around them. Some guests claim to have felt invisible hands rest lightly on their backs or shoulders, as though guiding them toward a particular room or urging them away from another. The presence is never directly threatening, but it is persistent, intelligent, and impossible to ignore. Historians believe the spirits that linger in Hay House may be tied to the many generations who lived there. The families who once owned the mansion were deeply connected to the home, investing their time, fortune, and identity into its walls. With so much emotional energy imprinted on the space, it is easy to imagine that some echoes of those lives remain. Others believe the hauntings come from visitors who attended events or celebrations at the mansion long ago, their memories forever embedded in the structure. There are also tales of staff members who once cared for the house and may still feel responsible for maintaining its elegance. Some claim to have seen a maid in an old-fashioned uniform sweeping silently down a hallway or adjusting curtains in an empty room. These appearances are brief and quiet, yet remarkably detailed, as though the spirit remains dedicated to her duties long after her time has passed. Nighttime tours of Hay House routinely leave visitors unsettled but captivated. People step into the dim corridors and feel a sudden drop in temperature. They hear the faint clatter of footsteps above them, even when the floors are empty. They sense movement behind them, only to turn and find nothing. The mansion, with its timeless beauty and lingering spirits, becomes a place suspended between the past and present. Hay House stands not only as a masterpiece of Southern architecture, but also as a reminder that history never fully disappears. Whispers echo through its ornate corridors. Phantom figures in 19th-century attire appear in windows and ballrooms, and restless spirits roam its shadowed rooms as though still living their old routines. For those who enter after dark, the mansion reveals itself as more than a historic landmark. It is a living memory, a place where the past walks beside the present, whispering softly through the night. Woodbine Mansion in Savannah stands quietly beneath towering oaks draped in Spanish moss, its grand columns and wide porches giving the impression of timeless Southern elegance. But for all its beauty, the mansion carries a chilling reputation whispered among locals. They say that ghostly children, once residents of the estate long ago, still run through the gardens and hallways, their laughter faint but unmistakable. To walk through the mansion after sunset is to step into a world where the past lingers just out of sight, and the line between the living and the dead feels thin enough to touch. The mansion itself dates back to the early 1800s, when it was built as a family home for a wealthy Savannah merchant. Over the decades, the estate saw countless gatherings, celebrations, and tragedies. Among the most enduring stories are those of the children who once lived within its walls. Several died young from illness, a common fate in that era, and their spirits are said to have remained on the property long after their physical forms were gone. Locals claim the children were playful in life and just as mischievous in death, turning Woodbine Mansion into one of Savannah's most quietly haunted homes. Visitors often report hearing the sound of children running along the garden paths. The footsteps are light and quick, pattering across gravel or brushing through the grass, even when the estate is completely empty. Sometimes, the laughter accompanies the sound, so high, soft, and distant, as though drifting on the evening breeze. The laughter never lasts long, usually fading in seconds, but it leaves behind a lingering sense of nostalgia mixed with unease. Those who hear it say the sound feels out of place, like a memory trying to force its way into the present. Inside the mansion, the experiences grow even stronger. The hallways are long and narrow, lined with old portraits and antique furniture. Cold spots appear without warning, abrupt drops in temperature that cause the air to chill and skin to prickle. Some visitors say the cold feels like a presence standing directly beside them, as if one of the ghostly children has stopped to observe. Tour guides have grown used to guests stepping aside suddenly, insisting someone brushed past them in a hallway despite no one being there. Furniture in Woodbine Mansion tells its own story. Wooden surfaces sometimes appear scratched, not with deep gouges but with thin marks, as though small fingers had dragged lightly across them. These scratches reportedly appear overnight, often in rooms that were untouched the day before. The caretakers have repeatedly polished or repaired the surfaces, only for new markings to appear again within days. The pattern is too deliberate to be the result of age or wear. Some believe the ghostly children are reaching out, attempting to interact with the world they once knew. One of the most frequently encountered phenomena occurs in the grand parlor. This room, once used for family gatherings and musical evenings, holds a large, gleaming piano that has long since fallen out of tune. Yet visitors sometimes hear single notes strike on their own, a soft, hesitant taps as if tiny hands are experimenting with the keys. The sounds are never loud enough to constitute a melody, but they are distinct enough to capture immediate attention. Those who witness it describe an eerie mixture of innocence and sorrow, as if the child spirits are playing but unable to finish the song. The Mansiona's staircase is another focal point of activity. People ascending or descending often freeze mid-step, claiming they felt something tug gently at their clothing. Others report seeing the fleeting silhouette of a small figure darting behind a railing or peeking from the landing before vanishing. In some cases, visitors have captured strange anomalies in photographs of blurs shaped like children, faint outlines near the banister, or orbs clustered at the base of the stairs. Though none of the images provide definitive proof, they spark curiosity and keep the legend of Woodbine Mansion alive. The gardens, bathed in moonlight, hold their own mysteries. At night, shadows flit between the hedges, too small and quick to belong to animals. The sweet scent of flowers mixes with an inexplicable chill that rolls across the grounds. People wandering the garden after dark sometimes hear giggles or feel a small hand brush lightly against their own. One guest recounted standing near a fountain when she felt a gentle tug on her sleeve. When she turned, she saw nothing but swirling mist rising from the water. The experience left her shaken and convinced she had encountered one of the spectral children. The nursery upstairs, now staged with period toys and furniture for tours, remains the most emotionally charged room in the mansion. Visitors stepping inside often describe feeling a sudden heaviness in their chest, as though the room holds memories too strong to ignore. The rocking chair in the corner sometimes moves on its own, swaying gently as though someone unseen has taken a seat. Toys placed carefully by staff are found shifted the next morning, some turned toward the windows as if watching for someone to return. Local residents believe the children who haunt Woodbine Mansion are not malicious, but restless, caught between the joy they once knew and the sorrow of being forgotten. They run through the gardens, drift along the hallways, and leave their faint marks behind as reminders of their lingering presence. The mansion, beautiful yet filled with echoes, stands as a testament to their unending play. For those who enter Woodbine Mansion, the experience is unforgettable. Cold spots brush against warm skin. Scratches appear where no hands should reach. And laughter rings through empty rooms. The ghostly children continue their unseen games, where their presence can still be felt, a soft, fleeting, and forever watching. Elmwood Manor in Augusta has long been regarded as one of the city's most enigmatic and unsettling relics. A grand structure whose fading elegance is overshadowed by the strange happenings reported within its walls. The manor stands atop a hill overlooking old oak-lined streets, its towering facade casting long shadows that seem to shift on their own. Built in the late 1800s as a symbol of prosperity, the house has survived storms, changing generations, and periods of abandonment. Yet despite its beauty, visitors agree that something lingers insidious, something restless, watching, and forever moving through its darkened corridors. Those who approach Elmwood Manor often speak of a strange heaviness in the air, as if the very atmosphere thickens the closer one gets to the entrance. The windows glimmer faintly even in the absence of light, suggesting shapes drifting behind the glass. Many locals refuse to step inside at all, warning that the manor holds memories that refuse to fade and shadows that do not belong to any living presence. Visitors who do enter describe the interior as eerie and unwelcoming, despite its once grand architecture. The main hallway, lined with portraits whose eyes seem to follow every step, is known to fill with an unexplainable chill. Even on warm summer evenings, guests report sudden cold spots, so intense they can see their breath. Some feel the sensation of being watched, as though someone is standing just behind them, waiting silently. One of the most frequent reports comes from those staying overnight or touring after dusk. They speak of faint cries echoing along the corridors, soft at first, like distant murmurs, then slowly growing clearer, resembling the whimpers of someone trapped or grieving. These cries often lead visitors to long-abandoned rooms whose doors should remain locked. Yet somehow they are found slightly ajar, as if Summonia or something had slipped inside moments before. Shadowy figures are also a common sight, often appearing in the corner of Oni's vision. They drift through the hallways without sound, vanishing the instant someone attempts to look directly at them. Guests describe them as tall and human-shaped, but lacking any identifiable features. They simply glide weightless through the dimly lit passages, sometimes pausing just long enough to be acknowledged before dissolving into the nearest wall or doorway. Some witnesses say these figures seem to mimic footsteps, pacing behind them in perfect rhythm before abruptly stopping. Others hear footsteps overhead, even when no one else is in the house. One room in particular, the old nursery, is notorious for unsettling encounters. Though empty for decades, it still carries the scent of old cedar toys and dust-covered blankets. Visitors report hearing soft footsteps inside the room, as if a child is pacing back and forth. Others hear the sound of something tapping on the window, despite the fact that the shutters outside have been nailed shut for years. The touch lasts only a second before disappearing, leaving the visitor breathless and shaken. The menorah-esque staircase is another source of unease. Many have said that as they ascend or descend the wooden steps, they feel the overwhelming sensation of someone standing beside them. At times, the banister vibrates slightly as if another hand is gripping it. Some tourists hear faint whispers circling around thema indistinct, urgent, and impossible to comprehend. The whispers fade the moment they reach the top or bottom of the stairs, as though the presence guiding them has completed its task. Nighttime brings the peak of activity. Those brave enough to remain inside after dark tell of doors opening slowly on their own, followed by the soft patter of footsteps heading down the hall. Lights flicker despite modern wiring, and shadows stretch unnaturally across the walls. In the dining room, the long table is said to creak under unseen weight, as if someone invisible is taking a seat. Some guests notice impressions forming in the dust on the tabletop, a trail resembling small fingers sliding across the surface. Outside, the grounds of Elmwood Manor offer little comfort. Garden paths lined with overgrown rose bushes seem to whisper with each gust of wind. Visitors wandering too close to the windows at night sometimes see silhouettes standing motionless inside. These figures remain still for as long as they are watched, before gradually fading like mist into the walls. Many theories attempt to explain the haunting, tragic family losses, untold stories of grief, or echoes of past residents who never truly left. But no single explanation satisfies all the accounts. Elmwood Manor holds its secrets tightly, allowing only fragments to slip through in the form of distant cries, shadowy apparitions, and footsteps that wander endlessly through the halls. Those who leave the manor often carry its memory with them long after they have gone. Some feel the lingering sense of being followed. Others dream of dark hallways and unseen presences. And while many vow never to return, they all agree on one thing. Elmwood Manor is alive with something unseen, something that walks its corridors and watches from its windows, forever bound to the place it once called home. Roanoke Estate in Athens has long been a source of fascination and unease for locals, historians, and curious visitors. The sprawling property, with its aged brick FAA section Ade and towering white columns, reflects a time when grandeur and formality were hallmarks of Southern architecture. But while its exterior still carries a quiet elegance, the estate is far better known for the supernatural presence that seems to stir within its walls as daylight begins to fade. By dusk, the house becomes something else entirely, a place where the past refuses to stay buried. Visitors often describe a stillness that settles over the estate in the early evening, a silence so heavy it feels almost deliberate. As the sun dips below the tree line and long shadows stretch across the grounds, the air grows cooler, and a faint hum of energy seems to ripple through the walls. It is during this transitional hour that Roanoke awakens, revealing echoes of former residents and servants who continue to walk the estate, unaware or unwilling to acknowledge the passage of time. Many who approach the property around dusk witness their first strange sight before even reaching the front steps. Figures dressed in old-fashioned attire can sometimes be seen moving along the veranda, their forms semi-transparent, their movements smooth and unhurried. These apparitions appear to be performing ordinary tasks of sweeping, carrying linens, opening shutters. But when anyone attempts to approach, the figures dissolve into thin air, leaving behind only the sound of faint footsteps fading into the distance. Inside the estate, the atmosphere is even more uncanny. The interior rooms are filled with antique furniture, elaborate rugs, and portraits that seem to watch every visitor. But as night draws near, the sensation of being observed becomes unmistakably stronger. Guests often report feeling as though someone is standing just behind them, only to turn and find empty space. Others have described hearing the soft rustle of skirts or the tap of shoes on the wooden floorboards, always just around the corner or behind a partially open door. Whispered conversations are among the most frequently reported phenomena. These voices drift through the halls, sometimes sounding like hushed arguments, other times resembling casual, everyday chatter. Although they are clearly audible, the words themselves remain indistinct, impossible to decipher even when one leans in to listen closely. Many visitors describe the whispers seeming to circle around them, as if unseen people were talking directly in their ears. On rare occasions, individuals have sworn they heard their own names spoken softly, prompting them to leave the room immediately. The kitchen is known as one of the most active areas of the estate. Apparitions of servants have been spotted moving quickly between the old counters and cooking areas. Pots are heard clanging, drawers open on their own, and the faint aroma of bread or stew occasionally wafts through the air. Despite there being no food prepared, those who enter during these moments sometimes feel a sudden drop in temperature, followed by the unmistakable sensation of someone brushing past them. The upper floors of Rowan Oak Estate hold an even deeper layer of mystery. Former residents have been seen drifting through the hallways, appearing as pale silhouettes before vanishing into nearby rooms. Some visitors claim they've witnessed a woman in a long, flowing gown standing at the end of the hall, her face hidden behind shadow. When approached, she turns and walks into a bedroom, only for visitors to find the room empty upon entry. The air filled with a faint scent of lavender that lingers for several minutes before fading away. Children's laughter is occasionally heard upstairs, echoing softly from rooms that have been locked for decades. Some witnesses report seeing small figures dart across doorways or peeking from behind furniture before disappearing. These sightings evoke a strange mixture of comfort and sorrow, as though the energy of childhood remains trapped in some eternal loop within the house. The estate's expansive grounds are equally active. At dusk, ghostly silhouettes wander along the garden paths, their movements accompanied by rustling grass and the soft whisper of old garments brushing against the earth. Gardeners from centuries past appear for brief moments, kneeling beside overgrown flower beds or tending to long-abandoned tools. Some visitors even claim to see figures standing beneath the massive oak trees, staring silently toward the house before fading into the surrounding darkness. The most unsettling encounters occur when visitors attempt to interact with these apparitions. On more than one occasion, individuals have approached what they assumed was a reenactor or guide, only to watch the figure dissolve before their eyes. Others have described reaching out instinctively, whether in greeting or caution, and feeling only a sudden gust of cold air as the apparition vanishes. These moments leave witnesses shaken, often retreating quickly to the safety of the estate's exit. Despite the estate's eerie reputation, many believe that the spirits of Roanoke are not malicious. Instead, they seem rooted in the routines and memories of their former lives, bound to the place they once called home. Their whispered conversations, fleeting appearances, and lingering presences paint a vivid picture of a world that persists just beyond the reach of the living. Rowan Oak Estate stands today not only as a historical landmark, but as a bridge between past and present. Those who visit leave with stories they cannot easily forget. Of phantom servants carrying out their duties, of vanished residents appearing briefly at dusk, and of whispered voices echoing through empty rooms. The Estatia-s spirits continue their silent existence, reminding everyone who enters that some legacies are too powerful to fade, even with the passing of time. Dunleith House in Savannah stands as one of the city's most quietly unsettling landmarks. Hidden behind a curtain of moss-draped oaks and framed by elegant iron gates, the mansion radiates the kind of charm and history that Savannah is famous for. Yet beneath its graceful FAA section ade lies a lingering presence that has left countless guests uneasy. For decades, visitors have reported the same disturbing experiences. Waking in the middle of the night with the undeniable sensation of being watched, hearing doors groan open without cause, and glimpsing ghostly figures in mirrors that vanish the moment they turn to look. Those who stay overnight almost always remark on the atmosphere. The house feels charged, as though the very walls breathe with memories. The creak of the floorboards is common in old houses, but at Dunleith, the sounds seem purposeful, deliberate. Footsteps echo in halls where no one walks. The air grows cold in sudden pockets, as if someone unseen has just passed through. The most common account begins in the guest rooms. Many visitors report waking abruptly in the early hours of the morning, long before sunrise, with the weight of an unseen gaze pressing upon them. They describe the feeling not as threatening, but as unshakably present as someone standing beside the bed, silently observing. Some guests have dared to open their eyes, expecting to find a staff member or a companion. Instead, they find only the dim outline of the room, a faint draft, and the sense that something has just stepped back into the shadows. One couple shared an experience that has since become a favorite among local storytellers. They were staying in the east bedroom, near the old balcony, when the wife awakened suddenly, convinced someone stood near the door. When she nudged her husband awake, he listened carefully, and both of them heard the slow, deliberate creak of the bedroom door swinging open. No footsteps followed. When they turned on the lamp, the door hung slightly ajar, and the hallway outside was empty. They closed it, locked it, and tried to sleep again. But minutes later, the doorknob rattled softly, as if someone were testing it from the other side. Mirrors throughout Dunleith House hold their own share of unsettling stories. Guests often catch faint movements in their reflection. Shadows drifting, pale outlines gliding behind them, or figures standing quietly in corners. These apparitions are never seen directly. The moment someone turns around, the room is empty, the air still. One guest described brushing her hair before bed when she noticed a tall man standing behind her in the mirror, dressed in dark, old-fashioned clothing. She spun around, heart racing, but the space behind her was empty. When she looked back into the mirror, all she saw, her own terrified expression staring back. The grand hallway mirror on the first floor is infamous for these sightings. Staff members, long accustomed to the mansione-esque quirks, avoid looking into it at night. They say it reflects not just the hall but fragments of the pasta. Women in long gowns drifting by, servants carrying trays, or children pausing to stare before fading into the glass like smoke. Doors at Dunleith are particularly active. They open when no one is nearby, close softly behind guests, or creak slowly as if being pushed by a cautious hand. During one stormy evening, a group of visitors gathered in the parlor to enjoy the sound of rain tapping against the windows. Without warning, the heavy double doors behind them began to open inch by inch. No draft could have caused it. The air in the room was still. The doors opened fully, lingered as if an unseen figure was deciding whether to enter, then closed again with a gentle thud. The staff has grown used to answering questions about these experiences. Some warn guests not to leave their bathroom doors half open at night, claiming the spirits prefer closed spaces. Others advise visitors to ignore soft knocks after midnight, especially if they come in threes. They insist the knocks are never meant for the living. One longtime caretaker told a story that has haunted him for years. Late one evening, as he finished his rounds, he passed by a mirror in the hallway and glimpsed a young girl standing behind him. She wore a white dress and had her hands clasped at her waist. When he turned, the hallway was empty, but the temperature had dropped sharply. He left the house immediately and refused to walk that corridor after dark again. Despite these chilling experiences, Dunleith House retains an air of dignity. Its spirits, though active, seem tethered to their routines rather than malicious intent. Some believe the entities are former residents who never truly left, their memories echoing through the halls in loops of centuries-old habits. Others think the Housea's long history, marked by both celebration and sorrow, has imprinted on the structure itself, creating shadows that replay endlessly. Visitors leave Dunleith House with stories they hesitate to share at first, worried they want it to be believed. But once the sun rises and they step back into the world beyond the Mansiona's gates, many admit that the house felt Olivia. Aware of their presence, watching them as surely as they watched it. Dunleith House remains one of Savannah's most captivating mysteries, an elegant structure where beauty and the supernatural intertwine. And those who sleep within its walls never forget the whispers, the reflections, and the silent figures that linger just beyond the edge of sight. The Smedes Factor House in Natchez is one of those places where the past clings to the air as tightly as the vines climbing its aging brick walls. Though Natchez lies across the Mississippi border, the house is often woven into Georgia's corridor of ghost stories, shared in hushed tones among travelers and locals alike. Its weathered shutters, sprawling verandas, and high-ceilinged rooms tell tales of southern grandeur, but beneath its elegant exterior lies something far more mysterioso. Shadow figures, inexplicable cold spots, and whispers spoken in languages no living visitor can decipher. Those who step inside the Smedes Factor House often comment on the sudden shift in atmosphere. The air grows heavy, as though the house itself is holding its breath, waiting. The temperature changes without warning, dropping sharply in certain corners and hallways. Guests frequently pause, rubbing their arms as they walk through what feels like an invisible wall of frost. Even on the hottest summer afternoons, the house maintains pockets of chilling air that linger stubbornly, refusing to dissipate no matter how long someone stands in them. Shadow figures are the most common phenomena reported here, dark silhouettes that appear in empty rooms or behind open doorways. Visitors describe seeing a figure standing motionless in the parlor, only for it to slip away the moment they turn their head. Others have caught glimpses of elongated shapes drifting across doorways, too tall and too thin to be human. These forms vanish as soon as someone enters the room, leaving behind only the feeling that something unseen is still present, watching from just beyond the edge of sight. One volunteer guide shared a story that has stayed with her for years. She was preparing the dining room for a historical tour when she noticed a tall shadow standing near the fireplace. At first, she assumed it was her co-worker. But when she spoke, the figure didn't respond. Instead, it glided silently along the wall, its shape bending unnaturally, before slipping into the adjoining room. When she hurried in after it, the room was empty and no windows open, no doors moving, no possible hiding place. The cold in that room was so intense she could see her breath in the air. Whispers are another haunting trademark of the Smedes Factor House. These whispers often grow louder when someone stands still, as if the voices become curious, gathering around them with cautious interest. They sound on soft clicks, rolling syllables, and faint murmurs that rise and fall like a chant spoken underwater. On one occasion, a group of visiting researchers attempted to record the strange sounds. Though their ears picked up only faint murmurs, the playback revealed far more. Layered whispers overlapped, some high-pitched, some low, all speaking in an unidentifiable tongue. At one point, a clear voice seemed to whisper directly into the microphone, causing the equipment to malfunction. The audio later captured only static for several minutes, as though something had drained the Divicia's energy. The upstairs hallway is known as the most active part of the house. Many guests refuse to walk it alone after dark. They report feeling watched, as if someone is following just behind them. Footsteps echo faintly, perfectly matched to their own, pausing when they pause, resuming when they move. Some feel a cold hand brush against their arm or a faint pressure on their shoulder, as though a shadow figure is reaching out to steady itself or gain their attention. One couple staying overnight heard a soft tapping outside their guest room. They assumed it was the shifting old house until the tapping became a rhythmic knock of 3 taps, then silence. When the husband finally opened the door, the hallway was empty, but the temperature had plummeted. The chill seeped into the room even after he closed the door, and the tapping resumed on the far wall. as if whatever was outside had simply changed location. Mirrors only heighten the unease at Smeedy's Factor house. Visitors report seeing shapes moving behind them or faces peering over their shoulder. The reflections seem to shift slightly, revealing figures that vanish when someone turns around. Some guests cover the mirrors in their rooms before going to bed, unable to shake the fear that something within the glass is watching. Local folklore offers many explanations for the hauntings. Some say the house was built over an older burial site, its rooms resting atop unmarked graves. Others speak of tragedies that occurred within its walls: lost children, servants whose stories were never recorded, or travelers who disappeared without explanation. According to long-standing tales, these spirits linger in the house not out of malice, but because they cannot find rest, bound to forgotten languages and memories too distant for modern ears to understand. What remains undeniable is the consistency of experiences across generations. Whether visitors come seeking history, beauty, or a brush with the supernatural, they all leave with the same impression: Smeedy's Factor house is alive with shadows. The cold spots, the whispers, the elusive figures in empty rooms all hint at layers of time overlapping, the past refusing to let go. The Smeedy's Factor house becomes a crossroads between worlds. They feel the presence of those who once lived, whispering in forgotten tongues, forever watching, forever waiting. Rose Hill Mansion stands proudly atop a gentle rise, its sweeping columns and broad verandas glowing with the charm of antebellum elegance. During the day, it is a serene placia. Sunlight spills through tall windows, the gardens sway with the breeze, and the house seems frozen in a moment of southern grace. But when night falls and the shadows stretch long across the hill, Rose Hill becomes a different world entirely. Phantom lights flicker in the windows, footsteps echo up and down the staircases, and music from a bygone era drifts faintly through the halls. Visitors who stay overnight often describe the shift in atmosphere as soon as the sun sets. The house grows noticeably still, as though holding its breath. Lamps dim, drafts stir through rooms with no open windows, and the air takes on an electric heaviness, an almost tangible awareness. Guests have said they feel watched, not with malice, but with an old, lingering curiosity. The most famous phenomenon at Rose Hill is the lights. Year after year, dozens of people report seeing a warm glow appear in the upper windows long after the house has been locked for the night. These lights flicker gently, as though someone were walking past with a candle or lantern. On some evenings, multiple windows glow at once, forming shifting patterns of illumination that make the mansion look alive from the outside. Yet when caretakers hurry inside to investigate, every room is found dark, cold, and empty. A local historian tells the story of a night when she and two colleagues were studying documents in a downstairs parlor. Suddenly, the room above them lit up with a soft gold glow. Thinking a light had been left on, one of them went upstairs, only to find darkness thick enough to swallow her steps. Not even a bulb flickered. As she turned to leave, the glow returned, this time from the hallway behind her. But when she spun around, it vanished as though snuffed by an unseen hand. The staircase of Rose Hill is another center of mysterious activity. Guests lying awake in their rooms often hear footsteps ascending and descending the stairs at odd hours. These steps are slow, measured, with the creak of old wood bending beneath each careful stride. Many who hear them assume another visitor is up late, only to discover the next morning that no one else heard a thinga, or that they were the only guests staying on that floor. One couple recounted an experience that left them shaken. They were preparing for bed when they heard someone climbing the main staircase. The footsteps reached the landing just outside their room, then stopped. After a long silence, their doorknob rattled gently, as though someone were testing it. When they opened the door, no one was there. The hallway was empty, the air colder than the rest of the house. The footsteps started again moments later, descending into silence. Then there is the music, of the faintest echo of melodies no musician has played in generations. Visitors describe hearing soft piano notes drifting through the ballroom, accompanied by the occasional swell of strings. The music is always distant, as though carried across time itself. On nights when the house is especially active, the melodies grow clearer, forming waltzes once danced by the mansiona's earliest residents. A caretaker who has served at Rose Hill for over a decade recalls an evening when she paused outside the ballroom door, hearing unmistakable piano chords coming from inside. She pressed her ear to the wood, listening to a slow, mournful tune. When she opened the door, the room was dark and silent, the piano untouched and covered in dust. The melody, however, continued faintly behind her, as if drifting from down the hallway she had just walked. Others have heard laughter mingling with the music, light, airy, unmistakably festive. Some claim to have heard the clinking of glasses, soft conversations in old-fashioned accents, and footsteps swishing as if gliding across a ballroom floor. These spectral echoes give the impression of a celebration still unfolding, long after its original participants have departed this world. Certain rooms in Rose Hill hold a deeper chill than others. Guests who stay in the old master bedroom often report a strange sensation of being accompanied. They describe waking to the soft rustle of fabric or the sound of someone adjusting the heavy curtains. A few have seen the silhouette of a woman standing near the window, her figure illuminated briefly by the moonlight before dissolving into the shadows. In one of the upstairs rooms, a visiting writer awoke to the sound of humming. It was soft, almost soothing, but unfamiliar. When he sat up, the humming stopped. At the foot of his bed, he saw a faint shimmer of light of the outline of a person just barely visible. Before he could speak, the light faded, leaving only the creak of the floorboards as though someone had stepped away. Local folklore offers countless theories about these hauntings. Some believe the mansiona's original occupants still walk its halls, revisiting memories of grand events and quiet personal moments. Others say the house has absorbed the emotional weight of centuries of its joy, its sorrow, its secrets, and now plays them back in fragments to those perceptive enough to notice. Regardless of the explanation, the experiences remain consistent. Night after night, phantom lights glow behind the windows. Footsteps roam the stairs and hallways. Music from a forgotten era rises and falls like the breath of the house itself. Rose Hill Mansion is more than a historic landmark, it is a living archive of the past. And for those who dare to stay within its walls, it offers a rare opportunity to witness echoes of another time, lingering softly in the shadows, refusing to fade into silence. Belmont Mansion in Atlanta has long been admired for its sweeping architecture, ornate woodwork, and the unmistakable aura of old Southern grandeur. Yet beneath its polished floors and grand staircase lies a history whispered in fragmenta. Tales of restless spirits, lingering memories, and rooms where the air feels colder than it should. Those who enter expecting only historical charm often leave with stories they never thought they would tell. The mansion was built in the late 1800s by a wealthy family known for their extravagant parties and deep ties to Atlanta society. Over the decades, it passed through various owners, each reporting unusual occurrences they could never fully explain. Today, Belmont Mansion stands preserved as a local landmark, open to tours and special events, though staff members quietly caution newcomers about its other reputation, the one not printed on brochures. The grand staircase is the mansiona's most iconic feature, curving upward with elegance and grace. Yet many visitors claim it is also the mansiona's most haunted space. People walking its steps feel the unmistakable sensation of being watched, as though someone unseen glides just behind them, matching their pace. Some report feeling a cold hand briefly touch the back of their shoulder or graze their arm. Others describe hearing footsteps following them, only to turn around and see the staircase empty. Multiple guests have reported seeing ghostly figures on the staircase, translucent shapes dressed in outdated clothing, lingering just long enough to be noticed before fading into the shadows. A woman in a flowing gown is the most frequently seen apparition. She appears at the top of the stairs, her head tilted slightly downward, as if searching for someone below. When witnesses attempt to meet her gaze, she vanishes without a sound, leaving behind only the chill of her presence. Inside the parlor rooms, where elegant chairs, tables, and portraits remain arranged as they once were more than a century ago. On quieter afternoons, staff have heard the faint rustle of fabric, as if unseen guests are brushing past each other, mingling in conversations long forgotten by time. Visitors walking through these rooms often pause, feeling the temperature drop suddenly around them. They describe cold spots so intense that they raise goosebumps on even the warmest days. Some guests step into a corner of the room for a moment, feeling perfectly normal, only to move 2 steps forward and be enveloped in icy air. These cold pockets drift, as if guided by unseen footsteps, moving unpredictably from room to room. Mirrors in the mansion have become another focal point of eerie encounters. Several people claim to have seen faint figures standing behind them in reflectionanza. Figures that vanish when they turn around. One visitor reported seeing the outline of a man wearing a suit from the early 1900s appearing over her shoulder. She felt no fear, only a deep sense of sadness coming from the figure, as though he were silently observing, longing for something beyond reach. When she blinked, he was gone. Bring even more chilling reports. The heavy chandelier sways with no breeze. Some guests swear they heard laughter soft, distant, and layered with echoesa, as if an invisible crowd were enjoying an evening that refuses to end. Though no instruments are present and no recordings are played. The mansiona's upper floors add another layer to the mystery. Guests walking through the long hallways have heard doors creak open behind them. When they turn around, they find the doors slowly swinging, stopping midway or opening entirely. Staff attempt to debunk these occurrences, checking for drafts or loose hinges, yet they can never replicate the phenomenon. Doors that behave normally throughout the day begin their strange movements as soon as dusk settles, responding as if to unseen travelers moving between the rooms. One room in particular, known for its preserved Victorian copyright COR, often leaves visitors unsettled. Some report feeling as though someone is standing directly behind them, breathing softly or watching their every move. A few have abruptly left the room, overcome by an overwhelming sensation of heaviness or sorrow. Others hear faint whispers, like distant conversations carried through the floorboards. While the words are indistinguishable, the tone feels urgent, as if the spirits are trying to communicate across the divide. Belmont Mansiona's history is filled with both joy and tragedia. Celebrations, births, losses, and moments of heartbreak. Whether the ghostly activity stems from lingering memories or spirits who refuse to leave. Those who experience it agree on one thing. The mansion feels alive in ways that defy explanation. Today, visitors continue to arrive, drawn by the mansiona's beauty and its whispered secrets. Some come seeking history. Others come searching for answers about the supernatural. Regardless of their intentions, many leave with stories they never expected. Tales of cold touches, moving chairs, ghostly figures drifting along the grand staircase. And the unmistakable feeling that the past is still present, watching from every corner of Belmont Mansion. The Callaway estate in Pine Mountain has always carried an air of quiet grandeur, set among rolling hills and forests that seem to whisper ancient secrets. Built in the late 1800s by one of the region's most influential families, the estate once employed hundreds of workers who tended the land, maintained the grand home, and cared for the sprawling gardens. Today, the house stands as a preserved piece of Georgia historia, but according to locals, the echoes of its past are far from silent. Stories passed down through generations speak of phantom laborers who still roam the grounds, continuing the work they did in life. Visitors walking along the old paths feel an unsettling presence trailing behind them, as though someone unseen is pushing a wheelbarrow or carrying tools that no longer exist. At dusk, when the sun begins to fall behind the trees, long shadows stretch across the land and flicker in strange patterns. Some witnesses swear they have seen silhouettes of workers moving methodically, with tired shoulders and slow, steady steps, only to dissolve into the twilight when approached. Inside the main house, the atmosphere changes instantly. The moment visitors cross the threshold, they often describe feeling a shift in the air. Heavier, cooler, and charged with an energy that seems to linger in every corner. The halls are long and dimly lit, and Ida hear that many report seeing shadows glide along the walls, moving with purpose and speed. These shadows do not follow the patterns of light or the movement of people. Instead, they dart across rooms or down corridors as if reliving routines established a century ago. Some shadows appear to rush past guests, leaving behind a burst of cold air that chills them to the bone. Others are slower, drifting as though quietly observing the living. Guides who conduct tours of the estate have grown accustomed to startled reactions from visitors who swear they have seen figures standing at the end of hallways. Figures that vanish when the lights flicker or when someone takes a step toward them. The whispers are among the STT's most unsettling mysteries. People exploring the rooms often stop suddenly, convinced they have heard someone say their name. Sometimes as a soft murmur, barely audible, drifting in from an unknown direction. Other times, it sounds like a voice speaking from just behind them. When they turn, the room is empty. These whispers have been reported by guests from all walks of life, many unaware of the STT's paranormal reputation before visiting. Some hear unfamiliar names not associated with anyone currently present, names that belong to people long gone from this world. In one of the estate's oldest rooms, thought to have housed several workers during the early days of construction, visitors experience a particularly strong sense of presence. The room has a persistent coldness, even in summer. Guests describe feeling as if multiple people are standing nearby, unseen but undeniably close. Some claim to hear faint hammering or the sound of tools clinking together, as though work continues just beyond the veil of time. Another hotspot is the STT's rear corridor, where several visitors have felt invisible fingers brush against their arms, or tug lightly on their clothing. The sensation is fleeting but unmistakable, prompting many to step quickly forward or turn with a jolt. Even skeptics find themselves unnerved by the experiences, unable to explain the sudden chills that appear in small, concentrated pockets throughout the hallway. Outside, the grounds tell their own ghostly stories. The orchards, once filled with laborers tending fruit trees, are among the most active areas. People walking through the rows sometimes hear footsteps crunching on fallen leaves, though no one is there. A few have spotted the figure of a man carrying a sack over his shoulder, walking the same path repeatedly until he fades into the distance. Local lore suggests this may be the spirit of a worker who died suddenly on the estate, forever repeating the final task he performed in life. The garden near the back terrace holds another layer of mystery. It is here that visitors report hearing distant conversations, though the words are indistinguishable. Some say they have heard soft singing or humming, the kind workers might have used to pass long hours. Others describe a feeling of being surrounded, as if dozens of unseen people are moving around them, busy with duties that no longer exist. Nighttime visits, though rare and strictly supervised, bring the most intense experiences. Lights in the house flicker, even when electrical systems are functioning normally. Shadows move in clusters, appearing almost like groups of workers gathering before beginning their tasks. The air feels different, thick, as though filled with memories. Some visitors admit they cannot stay long inside, overwhelmed by the sensation of being watched from every direction. Whether the ghostly laborers of Callaway Estate are trapped memories, lingering energies, or restless spirits, no one can say for certain. But the stories persist, woven deeply into the history of Pine Mountain. Those who walk the grounds leave with a lasting impression that the past is not gone, but quietly alive, whispering names, and reliving its burdens within the walls and fields of the Callaway Estate. Hayfield Manor in Macon stands as a testament to antebellum elegance, its brick FAA section ade and towering columns a reminder of a bygone era. The sprawling estate, once home to a prominent family, is now preserved as a historic landmark. Yet behind the beauty and grandeur lies a presence that has unsettled visitors for decades. Guests often describe the manor as Olivia not with the bustle of people, but with lingering shadows, cold drafts, and the unmistakable feeling of being watched. Upon entering the manor, one is immediately struck by its quiet atmosphere. The grand halls and high-ceilinged rooms seem to carry the weight of history in every corner. As visitors walk through the house, they frequently notice the temperature shift suddenly, as if the walls themselves exhale cold air. These pockets of chill are inconsistent, appearing in certain rooms or corridors without warning, leaving guests shivering despite the warmth outside. Many describe stepping into a room and feeling as though an invisible presence is lingering just beyond their line of sight. Ghostly figures are commonly reported throughout the manor, particularly in the long corridors that connect the main rooms. Visitors speak of faint shapes gliding along the walls, sometimes in the corner of their vision, disappearing the moment they attempt to focus on them. The figures vary in appearance. Some resemble servants in period attire, while others are harder to define, shadowy forms that seem to stretch and bend unnaturally. Even those who do not believe in the supernatural often find themselves pausing mid-step, convinced that someone unseen is moving ahead of them. One guest recounted walking down a narrow hallway lined with oil paintings, when she noticed a tall figure at the far end. The apparition appeared to be observing her silently. Motionless, yet aware, her instincts told her to move closer. But as she approached, the figure melted into the shadows, leaving only the faint echo of footsteps that seemed to follow her as she continued down the corridor. The sensation of being trailed by unseen eyes is a common experience at Hayfield Manor, described as a subtle pressure in the room or a prickling along the back of the neck, intensifying whenever one pauses to look around. Cold drafts are another hallmark of the manor's presence. Guests report doors opening slightly, only to swing back closed as if pushed by invisible hands. Windows, even when securely latched, allow sudden gusts of icy air that drift across rooms with no discernible source. In some instances, visitors feel a sudden chill brushing against them, as if a ghostly hand had passed by. These experiences are often accompanied by soft sounds, a rustling fabric, the shuffle of feet on wooden floors, or whispers too faint to comprehend, yet unmistakably human in nature. The drawing rooms and parlors are known for particularly vivid sightings. Guests sitting quietly have reported glimpsing figures seated in chairs that appear occupied for only a moment, fading as soon as they attempt to get a closer look. Mirrors in these rooms have also been the focus of supernatural reports. Some claim to see reflections that do not match their own movements, glimpses of figures standing behind them, or fleeting images of people dressed in clothing from the 19th century. Many feel compelled to look away quickly, unsettled by the sense that something is observing them from beyond the glass. Upstairs, the bedrooms evoke a sense of personal presence. Occasionally, doors are found slightly ajar, even after being securely closed. The air in these rooms is heavy with cold drafts, carrying the faint scent of perfume or cologne from another era. Some guests have awakened to the sound of soft footsteps pacing the halls, accompanied by the creak of floorboards, though no one is present when they investigate. Hayfield Manor-esque gardens and exterior spaces are not immune to the same unsettling energy. Guests strolling along the terrace at twilight sometimes report sensing figures among the trees or catching fleeting glimpses of movement in the shadows. The combination of the dense foliage, fading light, and the estetia's historic aura creates an environment where the boundary between the present and the past seems thin, and the whispers of another time grow audible. Local lore suggests that the spirits haunting Hayfield Manor are those of former residents and staff who lived and worked in the home over generations. Many believe the house retains their memories, replaying fragments of daily life, unspoken thoughts, and long-forgotten conversations. The cold drafts, the fleeting shadows, and the sensation of unseen eyes are interpreted as echoes of a world that refuses to be forgotten. Despite its spectral activity, Hayfield Manor continues to welcome guests, offering tours and overnight stays to those intrigued by its history and mystery. Visitors leave with stories they cannot easily explain, tales of ghostly figures gliding through corridors, cold drafts that appear and vanish without reason, and the unsettling awareness of being watched by presences that are never fully visible. For those who spend time within its walls, Hayfield Manor is more than a historic home. It is a living archive of the past, where memories linger, shadows move, and the line between the living and the spectral blurs. Oakridge Mansion in Savannah is a sprawling estate that exudes the quiet elegance of the Old South. With its grand columns, sweeping verandas, and intricately carved woodwork, the mansion captures the attention of every visitor who approaches. By day, it is a picturesque symbol of history and architecture, its gardens meticulously maintained, and its interiors rich with antique furnishings. Yet as night falls, Oakridge transforms into something far more mysterious. Shadowy forms drift through empty rooms. Phantom footsteps echo along the hallways. And whispers, soft and unintelligible, fill the air in ways that have unsettled guests for generations. Visitors often remark on the moment they first enter the mansion. There is a distinct shift in the atmosphere. The air feels heavier, cooler, almost as though the house itself is aware of their presence. In the dim light of evening, corners appear darker than they should, and shadows stretch along the walls in shapes that seem to move independently of passing visitors. Guests frequently report catching glimpses of figures standing at the edges of their vision, only for these forms to vanish when looked at directly. These shadowy presences are often described as humanoid, tall and thin, with no distinguishable features, yet their movement is deliberatia, as if carrying out actions from a time long past. The hallways of Oak Ridge Mansion are particularly active. Many guests speak of hearing footsteps echoing across the polished floors late at night. Though when they follow the sound, the corridors are empty. The echoes often come in a measured rhythm, slow and purposeful, sometimes rising to a quickened pace before fading into silence. Some describe the footsteps as following them from room to room, pausing when they pause, resuming when they move. It is a subtle, almost teasing presence, creating the sensation that something or something is constantly just behind them. In the mansion's empty rooms, shadowy figures appear with unsettling frequency. Guests have described seeing shapes standing by windows, shifting across walls, or hovering near furniture. One visitor recounted sitting quietly in the parlor when she noticed a dark figure standing by the fireplace. She froze, heart racing, and after a few moments, it slowly dissolved into the air as if it had never been there. Another guest, exploring an upstairs bedroom, claimed to see a tall silhouette drift from one side of the room to the other, moving with a quiet grace that defied explanation. The whispers at Oak Ridge Mansion are perhaps the most disconcerting element. They are soft, faint, and seem to drift from room to room, sometimes audible only to a single person in the house. Visitors often describe them as a mixture of indistinct conversation and sighing voices, speaking in a language that is neither recognizable nor consistent. At times, the whispers seem to call a visitora's name, drawing them further into the mansion's shadowed halls. Many who have experienced this sensation describe an almost irresistible pull to follow the sound, only to find the hallway empty, and the whispers fading as if teasing them. Mirrors and reflective surfaces in the mansion have also played a role in the reports. Guests frequently see shadowy figures reflected in mirrors when the rooms appear empty, or fleeting movements that vanish when they turn to face them directly. One visitor claimed to glance at an ornate mirror in the main hallway and see the outline of a person standing behind her, though when she turned, the space was vacant. Moments later, the figure reappeared in the reflection, lingering just long enough to vanish once more when observed directly. The mansion's staircases carry their own share of eerie occurrences. Late at night, some guests hear the soft creak of steps ascending and descending, though no one is present. On more than one occasion, a visitor reported pausing on the stairs to listen, only to hear the sound of footsteps coming from behind them, then stopping when they did. The sensation of being followed is heightened in these narrow spaces, amplifying the tension as the house's unseen occupants make themselves known in subtle, haunting ways. Some of the most intense experiences happen in the attic and upper rooms. These spaces are cooler than the rest of the house, and visitors often feel the sudden brush of cold air, accompanied by the sense that something unseen is moving nearby. Shadows seem to linger longer here, appearing near old trunks, windows, or the corners of the ceiling. Guests report hearing faint whispers and occasional laughter, almost musical in tone, though it seems to belong to another era entirely. Local lore suggests that Oak Ridge Mansion has been a site of restless spirits for generations. Some believe the shadows are former residents or servants replaying fragments of daily life long after death. Others suggest that the house itself holds memories, echoing past events and imbuing the rooms with energy that cannot fully dissipate. Regardless of the explanation, the experiences remain consistent across decades. Shadowy forms in empty rooms, footsteps that echo but leave no trace, and whispers that seem to come from nowhere and everywhere all at once. Visitors leave Oak Ridge Mansion with a mixture of awe and unease. By day, it is a beautiful historic home, rich with architecture and stories. By night, it becomes a living repository of the past, where shadows move independently, footsteps echo through empty halls, and whispers of long-gone voices float through the air. The mansion offers a haunting reminder that history is never truly gone. It lingers in the corners, follows quietly along hallways, and waits silently for those willing to witness it. Magnolia Hall in Augusta is a sprawling mansion that embodies the grandeur of the antebellum South. Its stately columns, ornate balconies, and expansive gardens draw visitors seeking history and architecture. Yet the house has long been known for a presence that goes beyond its impressive FAA sectionade. Within its walls, ghostly servants are said to continue their duties long after death, and visitors report a series of unsettling phenomena: flickering shadows, cold drafts, and faint cries echoing from abandoned chambers. The first impression upon entering Magnolia Hall is of a house frozen in time. The furniture is carefully preserved, the floors gleam, and the grand staircases curve with elegance. Yet the atmosphere often feels charged, as if the house itself remembers every footstep, every whisper, every murmur of the past. Guests frequently remark that certain rooms are colder than others, with drafts that appear without explanation, brushing along their arms as if invisible hands are guiding them. The kitchens are among the most active areas of the mansion. Visitors describe seeing figures moving between the countertops and stovesa. Shadowy forms that seem to prepare meals or carry trays, yet vanish when approached. Some witnesses have recounted the sudden clatter of utensils or the sound of pots being set down, though no one is present. These manifestations are often fleeting but unmistakable, leaving guests with the sense that the servants of Magnolia Hall have not entirely departed, continuing routines that have persisted for generations. Hallways throughout the mansion amplify the feeling of being watched. Shadows flicker along the walls, moving independently of the light or the people walking beneath them. Guests have described turning corners to see figures in period attire vanish as soon as they step closer. Some say the shadows linger near doorways, peering into rooms for a moment before fading into the darkness. The effect is subtle but persistent, a constant reminder that the house holds more than just memories. Abandoned chambers on the upper floors carry a heavier sense of presence. These rooms, once bedrooms or studies, now stand empty and silent by day. But at night they come alive with eerie sounds. Visitors report faint crying echoing through these spaces, soft sobs that seem to float from the walls themselves. Often, the cries are accompanied by the rustle of fabric or the soft shifting of unseen footsteps, suggesting that something or something is moving quietly within. The origin of these sounds is never visible, leaving guests with an unsettling awareness that the rooms are occupied by invisible inhabitants. Mirrors and reflective surfaces within Magnolia Hall are known to enhance the mansion's spectral activity. Guests frequently report glimpsing figures in mirrors or glass panels that vanish when directly observed. One visitor described seeing a maid in period dress reflected in the polished surface of a sideboard, bending over to adjust something on the countertop. When she turned, the room was empty, but the air retained a sudden chill. These fleeting reflections contribute to the sense that the house's spirits are present but careful, revealing themselves only partially, as if aware of human observation. Staircases and corridors amplify the mansion's eerie presence. Visitors often hear footsteps that echo in rhythm, rising and falling as though someone is pacing or moving deliberately from room to room. Sometimes the sounds mimic their own movements, giving the impression that the unseen presence follows or mirrors them. Even when multiple people are present, some guests report hearing footsteps distinctly separate from their own, coming from rooms that are unoccupied or halls that appear empty. The gardens and terraces of Magnolia Hall, though serene during the day, take on a more spectral character at dusk. Some guests claim to see fleeting shapes among the trees, or glimpses of figures moving across the lawns. The combination of fading light, shadows, and the estetia's historic charm creates an atmosphere where the line between the past and present seems thin. The whispers, footsteps, and fleeting glimpses of servants inside the house often extend to the exterior grounds, suggesting that the presence within the mansion is not confined to walls alone. Local lore suggests that the spirits at Magnolia Hall are those of servants and residents who lived and worked there over the centuries. Many believe the house retains their memories, replaying fragments of everyday life, from routine chores to private moments. The flickering shadows, the soft sobs in abandoned chambers, and the feeling of being followed or observed all point to a past that refuses to remain buried. Visitors who have spent extended time in the mansion often remark that the house feels alive, not in the conventional sense, but as if the past itself is moving, breathing, and persisting alongside the present. For those who step into Magnolia Hall, the experience is both fascinating and unsettling. The ghostly servants moving quietly through the kitchens, the shadows gliding along corridors, and the faint cries from empty rooms, where echoes of the past remain visible, audible, and chillingly tangible. The mansion is more than a preserved historic site. It is a living chronicle of lives once lived within its walls, where echoes of the past remain visible, audible, and chillingly tangible. The mansion is a living chronicle of lives once lived within its walls, where echoes of the past remain visible, audible, and chillingly tangible. Even after leaving, guests carry with them the sensation of footsteps behind them, soft whispers in the air, and the quiet reminder that at Magnolia Hall, history has not fully departed. Whitehall Estate in Milledgeville is a grand mansion that exudes the elegance of Georgia's antebellum architecture. Its stately columns and sprawling gardens a testament to a bygone era. But beneath the beauty of its exterior lies a haunting past that continues to ripple through its halls. Built atop an old cemetery, Whitehall carries with it stories of restless spirits, unexplained cold spots, and whispers that seem to rise from beneath the floors, unsettling even the most skeptical visitors. From the moment guests step onto the estate, they sense something unusual. The air is thick with a stillness that feels almost alive, as if the house itself is aware of their presence. Certain rooms carry a chill that has no explanation, sudden cold drafts sweeping across spaces even on warm days. Visitors report feeling these cold spots brush against them unexpectedly, sometimes accompanied by the sensation of being watched. It is in these subtle moments that the mansion's restless history begins to make itself known. Ghostly figures are a frequent occurrence at Whitehall. Guests walking through the halls in the evening often glimpse silhouettes moving just beyond the edges of their vision. Some describe the figures as former residents, dressed in 19th-century attire, quietly pacing the hallways or standing near windows as though peering out at the grounds. Others are harder to define, shadowy forms that drift through rooms before dissolving into the walls, leaving behind an eerie stillness that lingers long after the apparition has vanished. One visitor recounted exploring the main corridor late in the afternoon, only to see a translucent figure moving gracefully along the hallway. The figure paused briefly, as if to acknowledge her presence, then disappeared, leaving the air unusually cold and a sense of quiet unease. Moments like these are common at Whitehall, where the boundary between the living and the dead seems almost imperceptibly thin. The mansiona's history as a cemetery adds another layer to its haunting. Legend has it that the original grounds held the graves of local residents before the estate was constructed, and some spirits never left. Visitors have reported hearing whispers rising from beneath the floorsa. Soft murmurs, sometimes unintelligible, other times calling out names or speaking in half-formed sentences. These sounds are most pronounced in the older sections of the house, particularly near the foundation, where the floors creak even without footsteps. Guests often feel compelled to pause and listen, their curiosity mingled with an instinctive unease. In certain rooms, the paranormal activity becomes more pronounced. The dining hall, once the center of lively gatherings, now seems to host invisible diners. Guests have described chairs moving as if occupied, the subtle scrape of wooden legs against the floor, and even fleeting glimpses of shadowy figures seated at the table. At night, some have reported seeing shapes standing by the doorways or along the walls, silently observing before vanishing into the darkness. The bedrooms on the upper floors hold their own unsettling tales. Cold spots are frequent here, sudden drops in temperature that make the skin crawl. Some guests wake in the night to find the room filled with a faint, silvery mist, or to hear faint footsteps pacing the hallway outside their door. Mirrors occasionally reflect shapes that are not present, and in the quietest hours, soft whispers seem to drift directly into the ears of those who listen closely. Many have left these rooms feeling as though unseen eyes followed their every movement. Even the Mansiona's grand staircases carry the weight of the Estatia's spectral history. Visitors have reported hearing slow, deliberate footsteps ascending or descending the stairs when no one else is present. On more than one occasion, guests have described pausing mid-step, only to feel a cold presence brush past them, as if an invisible traveler moved alongside. The effect is unnerving, yet consistent, leaving a lingering impression that the house is far from empty. Outside, the gardens and terraces retain a quiet tension. As evening falls, shadows appear longer and more pronounced, stretching across the lawns and giving the impression that figures move among the trees. Visitors occasionally glimpse forms disappearing behind shrubs or glimpses of someone walking along the grounds before fading into the darkness. Even in daylight, there is an almost palpable energy, a reminder that Whitehall Estate is built upon more than soil and stonia. It rests upon history, memory, and restless spirits. Local lore suggests that the spirits of Whitehall Estate are tied to both the land and the mansion itself. Some are thought to be former residents, others laborers or townspeople whose graves were disturbed during construction. Regardless of origin, the manifestations are persistent. Shadowy figures roaming the halls, whispers echoing from beneath the floors, chairs moving without cause, and cold spots that defy explanation. Visitors leave with a sense that the house itself is alive, not with the energy of the living, but with the echoes of those who have never truly departed. Whitehall Estate is more than a historical landmark. It is a repository of the past, where the boundary between the living and the dead blurs. Guests walk its halls and sense the weight of history pressing in. Feel cold fingers brush past them, hear whispers calling from below, and witness shadows that vanish when looked at directly. For those willing to enter its walls, Whitehall offers a rare glimpse into a world where memory, loss, and lingering spirits converge, leaving an indelible mark on all who dare to witness its haunted legacy. Willowbrook Manor in Macon is a grand estate, its brick FAA section aude and sweeping verandas a testament to the elegance of 19th-century architecture. By day, it draws visitors with its stately charm, lush gardens, and ornate interior detailing. By night, however, Willowbrook reveals a very different idea, one filled with shadows, sudden chills, and an unshakable sense that the house itself is alive. Guests often speak of shadowy figures appearing at the windows, doors slamming without explanation, lights flickering in otherwise stable circuits, and cold drafts that seem to follow them through every hallway. The first thing most visitors notice upon entering Willowbrook Manor is the heavy, almost tangible atmosphere. The air feels cooler, denser, and charged, as if the mansion remembers each footstep that has ever crossed its floors. Even in the warmth of a sunny afternoon, certain rooms seem to hold a chill that seeps into the bones. Guests often feel brief, icy drafts brush past their arms, or a sudden shiver run down their spine, as though unseen presences are walking alongside them. Windows throughout the manor are a particular focus of paranormal activity. Shadowy figures have been seen moving behind the glass, sometimes standing motionless and watching, other times drifting as if gliding through the rooms. Visitors who attempt to approach the windows report that the figures vanish the moment they reach them, leaving nothing but the fading sensation of being observed. On multiple occasions, witnesses have claimed to see the same figure at different windows on different floors, suggesting a persistent presence that roams the mansion freely. Doors are another source of eerie experiences. Guests report doors that swing open or slam shut without warning, even when they have been securely latched. Some describe the sound as sudden and forceful, echoing through the long hallways, while others experience slow, almost deliberate movements, as if the door is being guided by an unseen hand. These occurrences are most frequent at night, though some visitors have noticed the phenomenon during daylight hours as well, adding to the Mansiona's unsettling aura. Lighting within Willowbrook Manor behaves unpredictably. Guests often describe these flickers coinciding with the movement of shadows or the feeling of being watched, creating an unnerving interplay between light and darkness. In some rooms, a single flicker may illuminate a shape for a fleeting moment, a figure standing in a corner or peering from behind a doorway, only to disappear the next instant. Hallways and staircases amplify the menorah's eerie character. Long, dim corridors are often filled with the sensation of movement just out of sight. Visitors hear floorboards creaking under invisible weight or feel the faint brush of something passing close behind them. Some describe the sensation of being followed, with footsteps mimicking their own from a distance, then stopping suddenly when they pause. The effect is subtle yet constant, leaving an impression that the house is aware of each persona's presence. Upstairs rooms bring encounters of a more intimate nature. Cold drafts here are more pronounced, often enveloping the visitor in pockets of icy air. Some guests awaken to the faint sound of whispering, soft murmurs that seem to drift along the hallways. The words are seldom recognizable, but the tone carries urgency, as if Savannah or something is trying to communicate across the divide between worlds. In certain rooms, chairs or objects appear to move slightly, further reinforcing the sense of an unseen presence interacting with the environment. Even the gardens surrounding Willowbrook Manor contribute to its reputation. Visitors strolling near the verandas at twilight sometimes glimpse fleeting shapes moving among the trees or across the lawns. Shadows seem to shift in ways that defy natural light, vanishing when approached and reappearing in another spot. The combination of dense foliage, the mansiona's historic charm, and fading evening light creates an environment where the boundaries between past and present, seen and unseen, feel remarkably thin. Local lore suggests that Willowbrook Manora's restless activity stems from the lingering presence of past residents and servants. Some believe the shadowy figures at the windows are former inhabitants, silently observing life as it continues without them. Doors slam and lights flicker, as if the mansion itself is expressing frustration or attempting to make its presence known. Cold drafts and whispered sounds are interpreted as echoes of memories too powerful to fade, replaying fragments of daily life, conversations, and long-forgotten events. Visitors leave Willowbrook Manor with impressions that linger long after they depart. The shadowy figures at windows, the sudden slamming doors, the flickering lights, and the cold drafts that trail through the hallways combine to create an experience that is both beautiful and unsettling. It is a place where the past is not gone but actively present, moving through rooms and corridors, watching silently, and leaving a lasting sense that the house itself has a consciousness. For those who walk its halls and garden, it is a living archive of memories, shadows, and lingering spirits, quietly asserting its presence. At every turn, Dunwoody Mansion in Atlanta is a grand estate whose elegance belies the unsettling presence that has haunted it for decades. Its sprawling halls, ornate staircases, and vast rooms once echoed with laughter and music. But today much of the mansion stands abandoned, silent, and shrouded in shadow. Visitors report seeing phantom children moving through the corridors, hearing whispered voices, and glimpsing fleeting shadows that vanish the moment they are noticed, creating an atmosphere both haunting and unforgettable. Upon entering Dunwoody Mansion, guests often remark on the sudden shift in temperature and air. Even during warm days, certain hallways and rooms feel unnaturally cold, as though the house itself exhales icy drafts. These pockets of chill often accompany reports of phantom sightings, particularly in the abandoned wings where the children are said to roam. Many visitors describe the sensation of being watched, a subtle pressure in the air, and a feeling that invisible eyes follow their every movement. The most frequently reported phenomena involve the spectral children themselves. Witnesses recount seeing small, indistinct figures darting from room to room or peering around corners before disappearing into the shadows. Sometimes the children appear to be playing, their movements deliberate and rhythmic, while other times they seem lost or searching. One visitor recalled walking down the main hallway when she caught sight of a small figure at the end, standing silently and staring. As she approached, it faded like mist, leaving only the lingering sense that she had been observed. Accompanying these ghostly figures are whispered voices that float through the mansion. These sounds are soft, often barely audible, yet impossible to ignore. Visitors report hearing fragments of conversation, laughter, or cries, sometimes in familiar tones and other times in unintelligible murmurs. The whispers are most pronounced in the abandoned wings, drifting along empty hallways and through doorways. Many who hear them feel a compulsion to follow, only to find empty rooms and silent spaces, as if the mansion itself is teasing or guiding them through a spectral memory. Shadows are another hallmark of Dunwoody Mansion's hauntings. They appear in corners, along walls, and across the polished floors, often moving independently of light or natural movement. Guests describe shadows that seem to stretch and bend unnaturally, sometimes accompanying the phantom children as they move, other times flickering across rooms without any discernible source. These fleeting forms enhance the feeling that the mansion is not simply abandoned, but alive with the echoes of the past. Rooms that were once bedrooms or parlors are now particularly active. Cold drafts seem to gather in corners, wrapping around visitors and intensifying the sensation of being followed. Chairs and small objects occasionally shift slightly, as if nudged by unseen hands. Mirrors have also played a role in the reports, reflecting shapes that vanish when approached or movements that do not align with the person looking into them. Some guests have seen the outline of a child in a reflection, only to turn and find the room empty. The Mansion's staircases amplify its eerie presence. Guests often hear soft footsteps climbing or descending, though no one else is present. In some cases, these sounds mimic the visitor's own pace, creating the unsettling impression that an unseen companion shadows their every move. The combination of phantom children, whispered voices, and footsteps produces an environment where the past seems to coexist alongside the present. Each layer of history subtly presses into the experience of the living. Even the exterior of Dunwoody Mansion carries an air of spectral energy. The gardens and terraces, once filled with laughter and activity, are now quiet and overgrown, yet visitors occasionally glimpse small figures moving behind windows or along verandas. Shadows flit among the trees at dusk, and the setting sun casts long, distorted forms across the grounds, blurring the line between natural light and ghostly presence. Local legend suggests that the phantom children of Dunwoody Mansion are spirits of those who lived and played within the estate long ago. Some say they are the souls of children who died unexpectedly, their energy lingering in the hallways and abandoned rooms. Others believe that the mansion itself holds memories, replaying fragments of past lives and echoing the laughter, cries, and footsteps of those who once called it home. Regardless of the explanation, the experiences are consistent. Fleeting figures, whispered voices, cold drafts, and shadows that seem to move with intention. Visitors leave Dunwoody Mansion with stories that linger long after they depart. The phantom children seen in hallways, the soft whispers echoing from abandoned wings, and the fleeting shadows that vanish when noticed create a hauntingly immersive experience. It is a mansion where history and memory intertwine, where the boundary between the living and the spectral is thin, and where the past refuses to remain silent. For those who walk its corridors, Dunwoody Mansion is more than an abandoned estatia, it is a living testament to the presence of those who remain, quietly playing, watching, and whispering from the shadows. Greenfield Estate in Savannah is a grand symbol of Southern elegance, its stately columns, sprawling gardens, and ornate interiors attracting visitors fascinated by history and architecture. Yet beyond its beauty lies a reputation that has grown over decades, one of ghostly encounters, inexplicable sounds, and shadowy presences that seem to linger just out of reach. Guests often report hearing footsteps echoing through empty corridors, seeing shadow figures appear in rooms only to vanish the moment they are approached, and feeling an unsettling awareness that the house itself is aware of every movement. Seeing shadow figures appear in rooms only to vanish the moment they are approached, and feeling an unsettling awareness that the house itself is aware of every movement. And feeling an unsettling awareness that the house itself is aware of every movement. From the moment visitors step through the front doors, there is a palpable shift in the atmosphere. The air feels heavier, cooler, and charged with an almost electric tension. Even on warm days, certain hallways carry a distinct chill, and the faint scent of something unplaceable lingers in the corners of rooms. Guests often notice that sounds are amplified in unusual ways, of the creak of a floorboard or the soft brush of air takes on a weight that makes it seem as though someone is moving just ahead of them, though no one is visible. The most commonly reported phenomena are the footsteps that echo through the estatia's long corridors. Visitors walking alone frequently hear a slow, measured rhythm that seems to follow them from room to room. Sometimes the footsteps speed up, then slow, giving the impression of a presence pacing deliberately, yet carefully avoiding direct contact. Guests have reported pausing mid-step, hearts racing, and feeling the faint vibration of invisible movement beneath their feet. The sound often ceases when they stop, only to resume moments later, as though the unseen figure is mimicking their actions or drawing them deeper into the mansion. Shadow figures are a frequent and unsettling occurrence within Greenfield Estate. Guests describe seeing dark silhouettes at the edge of their vision, sometimes standing motionless near windows, other times gliding along walls or across open spaces. The figures are often humanoid in shape, but lack any discernible features. One visitor recounted walking through a sitting room when a shadow appeared in the center of the floor. She froze in place, and when she took a cautious step forward, the figure dissolved into thin air, leaving only an impression of movement and an unnerving sense of being watched. These shadows are reported across the mansiona from the narrow hallways and upper-floor chambers, always appearing briefly, then vanishing, as if aware of human observation. The mansiona's rooms themselves seem to amplify the sensation of the supernatural. Mirrors, polished wood surfaces, and glass panes occasionally reflect movements that are not there, or fleeting shapes that disappear when looked at directly. Guests have described the sensation of someone standing just behind them, only to turn and find the space empty. Doors may creak open slightly or swing closed on their own, often coinciding with a sighting of a shadow or the distant echo of footsteps. These subtle, yet consistent phenomena create an atmosphere of heightened awareness, where the smallest sound or movement can send a shiver down the spine. The upper floors of Greenfield Estate are particularly active. Hallways and rooms that were once bedrooms or studies carry a heavier, more oppressive energy. Visitors report cold drafts that seem to wrap around them, the sudden impression of being followed, and whispers that drift through the corridors with no identifiable source. Some hear fragments of conversation, murmurs, or even the faint echo of laughter, adding a layer of unease that is difficult to describe. The combination of chilling temperature changes, unseen presences, and elusive sounds makes exploring these areas an experience that is as unnerving as it is fascinating. Even the exterior of the estate contributes to its spectral reputation. Visitors walking the terraces and gardens at dusk occasionally glimpse shadows flitting across windows, or fleeting figures moving among the trees. The interplay of fading light, ornate architecture, and the expansive grounds creates an environment in which it is easy to imagine that the past is reaching out, blending with the present in subtle and unsettling ways. The mansion appears alive after dark, its very walls and corridors resonating with the memory of those who once inhabited it. Local lore suggests that Greenfield Estate is haunted by former residents and staff. Some believe the shadows and footsteps are echoes of people replaying their daily routines long after death. Others theorize that the mansion itself retains memories of the past, and that visitors unwittingly become part of its ongoing story. Whatever the origin, the manifestations are consistent. Shadow figures appear and vanish, footsteps echo in empty corridors. Doors move on their own, and the sensation of being watched pervades every corner. Visitors leave Greenfield Estate with an impression that is difficult to shake. The fleeting shadows, the footsteps echoing from empty hallways, and the subtle whispers lingering in the air create an experience that is both fascinating and deeply unsettling. Greenfield Estate is more than a historic home. It is a living archive of memory and presence, where the line between the living and the spectral blurs. Every hall, every room, every mirrored reflection offers a reminder that in this mansion, the past is never truly gone. It moves, watches, and waits silently in the shadows. Maplewood House in Augusta stands as an enduring symbol of antebellum elegance, its stately FAA Section Ade and meticulously maintained grounds attracting visitors with a promise of history and refinement. Yet behind its grand exterior, the mansion holds a chilling reputation. Haunted by the spirits of former residents, Maplewood House is known for cold touches that brush against the skin, whispers calling out names, and ghostly shapes that appear and vanish in its hallways. Guests often describe the atmosphere as thick with the weight of unseen eyes, as though the mansion itself remembers every moment of the past. Upon entering Maplewood House, visitors immediately notice a subtle shift in the air. The rooms, though beautifully preserved with antique furniture and intricate woodwork, carry a distinct chill. Even on warm days, certain areas of the house feel icy, as if the presence of something unseen lingers nearby. Guests often feel a cold brush along their arms or shoulders, fleeting yet unmistakable, leaving them with the sensation that they are not alone. It is these small, consistent disturbances that give the mansion its reputation as a place where the past is still very much alive. Ghostly shapes are frequently reported in the hallways. Visitors describe figures that appear at the edge of their visiona. Shadowy, indistinct forms that seem to glide across the floors, or stand silently by doorways. One guest recounted walking through a long corridor when she noticed a figure dressed in period attire, standing near a window. She froze, heart pounding, only for the figure to vanish before her eyes as she stepped closer. These apparitions are said to move through the mansion, as if continuing the routines of life that were interrupted long ago. Their presence subtle but undeniably real. Whispers are another persistent phenomenon within Maplewood House. Visitors report hearing their names called softly from rooms they are not occupying, or the faint echo of conversation drifting through the hallways. The voices are often fragmented, unintelligible, or overlapping, creating an unsettling atmosphere where the boundary between past and present feels blurred. Some guests have recounted following the whispers to empty rooms, only to find nothing there but the lingering chill of the air. Others describe the whispers as a gentle guidance, almost beckoning them deeper into the mansiona's shadowed corners. In addition to whispers and shadows, guests frequently experience unexplained physical sensations. Cold touches on arms or shoulders, the sudden brush of air along the back of the neck, and even the impression of a presence standing just behind them are common. These sensations often accompany sightings of ghostly shapes or the sound of footsteps echoing in empty hallways. One visitor described pausing in the parlor when she felt a hand lightly touch her shoulder, though no one was present. The sensation left her startled, yet strangely aware that the mansion's spirits were interacting with her in subtle, deliberate ways. The upper floors of Maplewood House are particularly active. Bedrooms and studies, long abandoned and filled with antique furnishings, carry an air of heavy stillness yet. Shadows flit across walls, sometimes lingering near mirrors or doorways, only to disappear when directly observed. Footsteps echo along the floors above, though no one is present, often rising and falling in rhythm with the guests' own movements. These upper rooms create a sense of intimacy with the mansion's past, as if the spirits are replaying fragments of their lives within the very spaces they once occupied. Mirrors and reflective surfaces in Maplewood House often play a role in the experiences reported by visitors. Guests describe seeing fleeting images of figures standing behind them or in corners, only to vanish when they turn to face them directly. Polished wooden furniture occasionally reflects shapes that appear for a brief instant, creating a sense that the mansiona's residents are always present, watching and moving just out of reach. These glimpses are fleeting but memorable, leaving a lasting impression that the house itself is alive with memory. The exterior grounds of Maplewood House also carry a quiet, eerie energy. Even the gardens, well-tended and serene during the day, feel different as twilight approaches. Visitors walking near windows sometimes glimpse shadows passing across the glass, or see figures moving among the trees in the fading light. The mansiona's expansive verandas and long walkways create an atmosphere where the transition between indoors and outdoors is seamless, allowing the lingering presence of the past to flow through both the house and its surroundings. Local lore suggests that the spirits haunting Maplewood House are former residents who remain tethered to the estate. Some are believed to be family members, others servants or workers who lived and labored within its walls. These spirits are often seen replaying moments of daily life, moving quietly through hallways, whispering names, or appearing at windows and mirrors. Regardless of their origin, the manifestations are consistent: ghostly shapes in hallways, whispers echoing from empty rooms, cold touches that defy explanation, and the pervasive feeling of being observed by unseen eyes. Visitors leave Maplewood House with a profound sense of having glimpsed the past. The ghostly shapes that vanish when approached, the whispers calling names through empty corridors, and the subtle cold touches along their path, combine to create an experience that is as haunting as it is memorable. Maplewood House is not merely a historic estate. It is a living archive of memory, where the lives of those who came before continue to echo through hallways, interact with the living, and leave an indelible mark on all who enter. For those willing to explore its rooms and corridors, where the past has never truly gone. Oakwood Manor in Athens is a sprawling estate, its elegant FAA section ade and grandiose interiors offering a glimpse into the refined lives of a bygone era. Yet beneath its stately appearance, the mansion is steeped in stories of the supernatural. Guests report shadowy figures gliding across rooms, faint strains of music echoing through the halls, footsteps pacing empty corridors, and whispers drifting from abandoned chambers. The manor's atmosphere is thick with the weight of memory, and visitors often leave with a sense that the past is not simply preservata, it is alive. Upon entering Oakwood Manor, visitors are immediately struck by the Housea's commanding presence. The polished floors, intricate woodwork, and towering ceilings create an impression of wealth and grandeur. But the air often carries a chill, an almost imperceptible tension that grows as one ventures deeper into the mansion. Even in the warmest months, certain hallways and rooms remain unnaturally cold, and subtle drafts move along the walls and floors, brushing against those who wander the estate alone. These unexplained sensations set the stage for the menorah's more overt manifestations. Shadowy figures are among the most frequently reported phenomena at Oakwood Manor. Guests describe seeing indistinct forms moving silently across rooms, their shapes blurred and lacking detail, often vanishing the moment they are observed directly. Some figures appear to drift just above the floors, gliding with an unnatural smoothness, while others linger near doorways or corners, watching before disappearing into the shadows. One visitor recounted pausing in the main parlor to admire the furnishings, only to notice a dark figure crossing the room behind her. When she turned, the space was empty, but a sense of presence lingered, heavy and undeniable. Music is another eerie aspect of the manor. Faint strains of piano or strings occasionally drift through the halls, though no instrument is present and the source is untraceable. Guests describe the music as soft and distant, sometimes punctuated by the echo of a single note that reverberates unnaturally through the rooms. The melody often evokes a sense of nostalgia or melancholy, as if the house itself is replaying fragments of long-past gatherings and dances. Visitors have reported hearing music in one room, and then, moments later, in another, giving the impression that the mansion's ghosts are moving from space to space, carrying their song with them. Footsteps are another common experience within Oakwood Manor. Guests walking through the abandoned chambers or long corridors often hear rhythmic pacing, rising and falling in volume, as though something or something is moving deliberately through the house. Sometimes the footsteps mirror the visitor's own movements, stopping when they stop and resuming when they continue, creating an unnerving impression of being followed. Other times, they come from directions that defy logic, echoing down hallways that are empty or above floors that no one is walking on. Whispers and murmurs often accompany these auditory phenomena. Guests have reported hearing faint voices calling out words or phrases, sometimes even names, from rooms that are otherwise deserted. These whispers are often indecipherable, drifting through walls and corners in patterns that seem random yet purposeful. Some visitors feel compelled to follow the sounds, only to discover empty rooms and silent hallways. Others describe the whispers as guiding or cautionary, as if the spirits are interacting subtly with the living, choosing not to reveal themselves fully, but leaving unmistakable signs of their presence. The menorah's abandoned chambers are particularly active. These rooms, once bedrooms, studies, or servant quarters, now stand untouched but filled with the weight of memory. Shadows move along walls, cold drafts sweep across floors, and the faint echo of music or whispered voices seems to emanate from nowhere. Guests exploring these areas often report a mixture of fascination and unease, feeling as though they have stepped into a space where time has stopped, but the lives of former residents continue in spectral form. Guests exploring these areas often report a mixture of fascination and unease, feeling as though they have stepped into a space where time has stopped but the lives of former residents continue in spectral form. Mirrors, glass panels, and polished furniture occasionally reveal fleeting images of figures or movements that disappear when directly observed. Guests have described catching a glimpse of a figure reflected in a mirror or in the shine of a tabletop, only for it to vanish when they turn to face it. These brief reflections contribute to the pervasive sense that Oakwood Manor is a living archive of its past, where every shadow, sound, and movement holds a fragment of history. Even the exterior grounds of Oakwood Manor add to the haunting atmosphere. Visitors strolling near the verandas or through the gardens often glimpse fleeting figures at windows or moving through the long corridors visible from outside. The interplay of fading light, dense foliage, and the Mansiona's historic architecture creates an environment where shadows seem to move independently of natural sources, blurring the line between reality and memory. Local lore suggests that Oakwood Manor is haunted by former residents and servants, spirits bound to the estate by memory and unfinished business. The shadowy figures, faint music, echoing footsteps, and whispers are all consistent across multiple accounts, painting a picture of a house where the past refuses to remain silent. Visitors leave Oakwood Manor with the sense that the mansion is alive in a way that transcends its physical structure, where shadows move, music plays, and whispers carry the echoes of lives once lived. For those who walk its halls, Oakwood Manor is more than a historic estate. It is a living repository of memory, where the spectral presence of past residents continues to glide through rooms, call out names, and leave an indelible mark on all who enter. Each shadow, each whisper, each note of music reminds guests that at Oakwood, the past is never truly gone yet. It is waiting, watching, and softly moving through the spaces that remain. Hawthorne Estate in Macon is a striking example of antebellum grandeur, its expansive grounds, ornate facades, and sweeping staircases reflecting the wealth and elegance of a bygone era. Yet behind its stately charm lies a reputation for the paranormal. Guests and visitors frequently report encountering phantom figures near windows and staircases, hearing unexplained sounds echoing through the halls, and waking to the chilling sensation of invisible hands resting on their shoulders. The estate carries an air of quiet unease, a sense that the past lingers, watching and moving alongside the living. From the moment one steps onto Hawthornia's grounds, there is a noticeable shift in the atmosphere. The air feels heavier, cooler, and charged, as if the mansion itself is aware of the presence of visitors. Inside, even on bright, sunny days, certain hallways remain unnaturally cold, and faint drafts seem to follow guests as they move through the house. Many who enter report feeling a subtle pressure, a sense of eyes tracking them from the corners of rooms or from the shadows cast by the grand chandeliers and polished woodwork. These small, unnerving sensations set the stage for the STTS. More dramatic hauntings. Phantom figures are among the most frequently reported experiences at Hawthorne Estate. Guests describe shadowy shapes appearing near windows, their forms indistinct and flickering at the edges of perception. Sometimes they are motionless, standing silently as though gazing out at the grounds, and at other times they glide slowly across rooms, vanishing when approached. One visitor recounted seeing a dark figure standing at the top of the grand staircase, its presence imposing yet quiet. When he ascended the steps to investigate, the figure simply disappeared, leaving only the lingering sense that he had been observed. The grand staircases themselves are hotspots for paranormal activity. Visitors often hear the soft echo of footsteps, rhythmic and deliberate, climbing or descending the stairs when no one else is present. Occasionally, these sounds seem to mirror the guest's own pace, stopping when they stop and resuming when they move, creating the unnerving impression of an unseen companion following their every step. Some have reported glimpsing shadowy forms drifting along the staircase landings, figures that vanish into thin air as soon as attention is focused on them. Perhaps the most unsettling experiences at Hawthorne Estate occur in the middle of the night. Guests sleeping in the Mansiona's bedrooms frequently report waking to the sensation of hands resting on their shoulders, though no one is present. The touch is often light yet unmistakable, leaving a lingering chill and a sense of vulnerability. Some describe a brief pressure on their back, as if someone were leaning close, accompanied by a faint whisper or rustle of fabric. These nocturnal encounters leave a profound impression, reinforcing the idea that the estate is not simply haunted by memories, but by entities actively present and aware of the living. Windows throughout Hawthorne Estate are another focal point for ghostly activity. Visitors occasionally see figures standing at the panes, their outlines vague but unmistakably human. These figures often appear at dusk or in the dim morning light, standing silently as though observing both the interior of the house and the grounds beyond. Guests who approach the windows frequently report that the apparitions vanish without warning, leaving only a chill in the air and the unsettling feeling of having been watched from afar. Even the hallways and rooms not associated with the main staircases carry signs of haunting. Doors may creak open or close on their own, floorboards sometimes groan under invisible weight, and subtle shadows move across walls where no light source should create them. Whispers, often fragmented and indecipherable, drift through corridors and rooms, at times seeming to call the visitora's name or murmur warnings. These auditory phenomena combine with visual and tactile experiences to create a pervasive sense that the mansion itself is alive with memories and spirits of the past. The exterior grounds of Hawthorne Estate also contribute to its eerie reputation. Gardens once meticulously maintained now have areas where shadows seem to move independently of natural light. Visitors walking near the windows at dusk occasionally glimpse figures moving inside the mansion, their silhouettes shifting in and out of view. The combination of architectural grandeur, fading sunlight, and the lingering presence of shadowy forms creates an environment in which reality and memory blend seamlessly, heightening the sense of unease. Local lore suggests that Hawthorne Estate is haunted by former residents and servants. The phantom figures seen near windows and staircases, the footsteps echoing in empty halls, and the sensation of invisible hands resting on shoulders, all point to a house that is not empty but inhabited by echoes of the past. These manifestations are consistent, leaving guests with the unmistakable impression that Hawthorne Estate is alive in ways that transcend its physical structure. Visitors leave Hawthorne Estate with stories that linger long after departure. Shadowy figures gliding across rooms, footsteps that echo without source, whispers that drift from corners, and the chilling touch of unseen hands combine to create a hauntingly immersive experience. Shadowy figures gliding across rooms, footsteps that echo without source, whispers that drift from corners, and the chilling touch of unseen hands combine to create a hauntingly immersive experience. Shadowy figures gliding across rooms, footsteps that echo without source, whispers that drift from corners, and the chilling touch of unseen hands combine to create a hauntingly immersive experience. Shadowy figures gliding across rooms, footsteps that echo without source, whispers that drift from corners, and the chilling touch of unseen hands combine to create a hauntingly immersive experience. Hawthorne is more than a historic mansion. It is a living testament to the presence of those who came before, a place where the past continues to interact with the present. Hawthorne is more than a historic mansion. It is a living testament to the presence of those who came before, a place where the past continues to interact with the present. Hawthorne is more than a historic mansion. It is a living testament to the presence of those who came before, a place where the past continues to interact with the present. Hawthorne is more than a historic mansion. It is a living testament to the presence of those who came before, a place where the past continues to interact with the present. For anyone who walks its halls or ascends its staircases, the estate is a place where memory, spirit, and history converge, leaving an indelible mark on all who dare to enter. Silverwood Mansion in Atlanta is a sprawling estate whose grand architecture and historic charm draw visitors eager to explore its storied past. Yet behind the polished floors, ornate moldings, and towering ceilings lies a reputation steeped in the paranormal. Guests often report shadows moving silently through rooms, doors opening without explanation, and whispers echoing in the dead of night. Some claim to have seen ghostly figures peering through mirrors, their faces fleeting and indistinct, vanishing the moment they are looked at directly. Silverwood Mansion is a place where beauty and elegance mask an unsettling presence that lingers long after its occupants have left. From the moment visitors step into Silverwood Mansion, there is a subtle but unmistakable shift in the atmosphere. The air seems heavier, cooler, and charged with an energy that is difficult to describe. Guests often feel small brushes of air along their arms or shoulders, fleeting but tangible, as though the house itself is aware of every movement. These sensations set the stage for the more overt experiences reported within the mansion. Shadows are among the most frequently encountered phenomena. Visitors describe seeing dark, indistinct shapes moving across rooms or along hallways, often disappearing the moment they are observed. Sometimes these shadows appear to drift slowly, gliding above the floors or along the walls, while other times they flicker at the edge of vision, vanishing when one tries to focus. One guest recounted walking down the main corridor when a shadowy figure appeared in the corner of a room. As he approached, it dissipated into the darkness, leaving only a lingering sense of being watched. These fleeting forms are reported throughout the mansion, from the grand parlors to the quiet, abandoned chambers, and they create a pervasive feeling that the past is still very much present. Doors within Silverwood Mansion often move without cause. Guests report doors that swing open or close on their own, even when latched securely. Some describe slow, deliberate movements, as if guided by unseen hands. Others experience sudden, forceful slams that echo through empty corridors. These incidents frequently occur at night, but visitors have also experienced them in broad daylight, adding to the Estetia's eerie reputation. In many cases, these door movements coincide with other phenomena, such as the appearance of shadows or the sound of distant whispers. Whispers are a common auditory experience for those who explore the mansion. Guests have reported hearing faint voices calling their names or murmuring phrases that are difficult to comprehend. The sounds seem to drift through walls, rooms, and corridors, often coming from empty spaces. Sometimes the whispers appear to guide visitors through the mansion, beckoning them toward particular rooms or hallways, while other times they seem to follow without discernible purpose. Many guests describe a mixture of curiosity and unease as they move through the house, compelled to follow the sounds yet hesitant to approach the source. Mirrors within Silverwood Mansion have become focal points for ghostly encounters. Visitors often report seeing figures reflected in glass that vanish when approached. These apparitions are typically indistinct, humanoid in shape, and fleeting, but their presence is unmistakable. Some guests describe glimpsing faces or forms behind them in mirrors, only to turn and find the space empty. Others have reported seeing entire shadowy figures standing silently, watching from within the reflective surface before fading entirely. These mirror sightings amplify the sense that the mansion is alive with the echoes of past residents and unexplainable presences. The upper floors and abandoned rooms are particularly active. Bedrooms, studies, and storage spaces often carry stronger cold drafts, sudden noises, and unexplained movements. Guests exploring these areas frequently hear floorboards creaking under invisible weight, furniture shifting slightly, or soft echoes of footsteps pacing down hallways. Some have reported the sensation of being followed, as though an unseen entity moves in tandem with their steps, stopping when they stop and resuming when they continue. These subtle yet persistent occurrences contribute to the mansion's haunting atmosphere. Even the exterior grounds of Silverwood Mansion contribute to the sense of unease. The long verandas, expansive gardens, and ornate terraces create vantage points where shadows and shapes can be glimpsed through windows. Visitors strolling the grounds have reported fleeting figures moving across rooms inside the mansion, their silhouettes visible through the glass, only to disappear moments later. The interplay of fading light, dense foliage, and the mansion's grand architecture creates an environment where reality and memory blur, making it difficult to distinguish natural movement from the supernatural. Local lore suggests that Silverwood Mansion is haunted by the spirits of former residents, staff, and visitors who remain tied to the estate. The shadows, unexplained door movements, whispers, and mirror apparitions all point to a house alive with memory and presence. Guests leave with a deep impression of having walked among lingering spirits, where every room, hallway, and reflective surface holds the potential for an encounter with the past. Visitors to Silverwood Mansion recount experiences that linger long after they leave. Shadowy figures gliding through rooms, doors moving without cause, whispers in empty corridors. and ghostly reflections in mirrors combine to create an experience that is as unnerving as it is captivating. Silverwood Mansion is not merely a historic estate. It is a living repository of memory and spirit, where the past continues to watch, move, and interact with all who enter its halls. Each shadow, each whisper, each fleeting figure reminds guests that here, history never truly fadisa. It waits quietly in the corners, observing, listening, and leaving an indelible mark on all who dare to explore. Pine Hill Mansion in Savannah is a grand estate that captures the elegance of a bygone era, its ornate architecture and sprawling grounds drawing visitors eager to step into history. Its polished floors and stately facades, yet beyond its polished floors and stately facades, the mansion carries a chilling reputation. Guests frequently report cold spots that seem to linger in certain rooms, the faint strains of music drifting through the hallways, and ghostly voices murmuring words that are unintelligible yet deeply unsettling. Pine Hill Mansion is more than a historic residence. It is a place where the past seems to breathe, moving through the present, with a quiet but persistent presence. From the moment visitors enter Pine Hill Mansion, there is an unmistakable shift in the atmosphere. The air feels heavier, cooler, and charged with an almost electric tension. Even on the warmest days, certain rooms carry a chill that seeps into the bones, lingering long after leaving the space. These cold spots are not confined to a single area. They appear unpredictably, sometimes in parlors, sometimes in hallways, or near grand staircases. Guests often describe the sensation as a brush of icy air that moves along their skin, leaving the impression that they are not alone. Music is one of the most haunting experiences reported in the mansion. Soft, distant melodies drift through the halls, often resembling piano or string instruments, though no physical source can be located. Visitors describe hearing brief segments of songs that rise and fall in volume, giving the impression that the music is moving through the rooms, carried by invisible hands. Some hear a gentle lullaby, others a somber tune, both evoking a sense of nostalgia and melancholy. The music is fleeting, often vanishing as suddenly as it appears, leaving an eerie silence in its wake. Footsteps echoing through Pine Hill Mansion are another common phenomenon. Guests walking through empty corridors or abandoned chambers often hear the rhythmic sound of someone pacing above, below, or just beyond their line of sight. At times, the footsteps seem to follow them, stopping when they stop, resuming when they move. These occurrences create an unsettling feeling of being accompanied by an unseen presence. Some visitors have reported the footsteps crossing the floor behind them or along upper staircases, even when they are completely alone, heightening the sense that the mansion is alive with unseen activity. Ghostly voices add another layer of unease. Visitors frequently report hearing murmurs that are difficult to understand, often coming from empty rooms or from hallways just out of reach. The voices are usually soft, sometimes overlapping, as if multiple entities are speaking at once. While the words are unintelligible, their tone conveys emotion of pleading, sorrow, or gentle warninga that seems to reach the listener on a deeper, instinctive level. Some guests have described following the sound of these whispers, only to discover empty rooms, leaving them with the haunting realization that the voices are tied not to physical presence, but to memory or spirit. The mansion's rooms themselves often enhance the feeling of haunting. Mirrors and polished surfaces occasionally reflect movements or shadows that vanish when looked at directly. Guests have reported catching glimpses of figures standing silently in corners, only to find the space empty upon approach. Antique furniture occasionally shifts slightly, and doors sometimes creak open or close without any discernible cause. These subtle disturbances contribute to a pervasive sense of unease, making visitors acutely aware of every creak, whisper, or draft. The upper floors of Pine Hill Mansion are particularly active. Bedrooms and studies, long abandoned and filled with antique furnishings, seem to carry a heavier, more palpable energy. Shadows move along walls, and the echo of footsteps or murmurs is more pronounced. Guests often describe feeling the sensation of being followed, or of something unseen moving in tandem with them. Even when standing still, some feel the presence of another entity nearby, a quiet but undeniable awareness that Samania or something is watching. The exterior grounds of Pine Hill Mansion contribute to its haunting reputation as well. Gardens, terraces, and walkways are often the first glimpse visitors have of the estate at dusk. When shadows lengthen and the mansiona's windows reflect fading light. From these vantage points, figures are sometimes glimpsed moving behind curtains or across rooms, vanishing when observed. The interplay of twilight, architectural grandeur, and the mansiona's storied history creates an atmosphere in which the line between memory and reality blurs, leaving a lasting impression on all who visit. Local lore suggests that Pine Hill Mansion is haunted by former residents, staff, or visitors who remain tethered to the estate. The cold spots, footsteps, ghostly voices, and fleeting shadows all point to a house alive with memory, where the past refuses to remain silent. These consistent manifestations leave guests with the impression that the mansion is not merely a preserved historical site, but a living archive of presence and memory. Visitors depart Pine Hill Mansion with a sense that the house has left a mark on them. The cold spots that linger in certain rooms, the fleeting melodies of ghostly music, the footsteps echoing down empty corridors, and the murmured voices from unseen sources, combine to create an immersive, unforgettable experience. Pine Hill Mansion is more than a historic estate. It is a place where the past moves, watches, and whispers, ensuring that the memory of those who once lived within its walls continues to touch the present. Each shadow, each note, each whisper is a reminder that here, history is not silenta, it is alive. Oakridge Hall in Augusta is a stately mansion whose grand architecture and ornate interiors speak to an era of elegance and wealth. But behind its polished floors, sweeping staircases, and gilded chandeliers lies a chilling presence that has earned the mansion a reputation as one of the most haunted estates in the region. Visitors frequently report shadowy figures moving through corridors and ballrooms, doors slamming without cause, lights flickering in empty rooms, and whispers that echo from corners long abandoned. Oakridge Hall is a place where the past seems to walk alongside the living, leaving an indelible mark on those who enter. From the moment guests step through the front doors, the air carries a weight that is hard to define. The temperature often drops suddenly, and a faint chill seems to follow visitors as they move through the hallways. Even on bright, warm days, certain rooms feel unnaturally cold, and subtle drafts brush along walls and floors, giving the sense that unseen presences are observing every step. These sensations create an atmosphere of anticipation and unease, preparing visitors for the more overt phenomena that are reported throughout the mansion. Shadowy figures are among the most common and unsettling experiences at Oakridge Hall. Guests describe seeing dark, indistinct forms gliding across corridors, sometimes appearing at the far end of a hallway or standing motionless near a doorway. These apparitions vanish when approached directly, leaving behind only the sensation of having been watched. In the grand ballrooms, figures have been reported moving silently across the floor, as if replaying dances or gatherings from long ago. These apparitions vanish when approached directly, leaving behind only the sensation of having been watched. One visitor recalled pausing in a long hallway to look at an ornate mirror, only to see a shadowy figure reflected standing silently behind them. When they turned, the space was empty, but the feeling of presence lingered. Doors in Oakridge Hall often move on their own, slamming shut or swinging open without explanation. Guests report doors that appear securely closed suddenly creaking open, sometimes slowly and deliberately, sometimes with a loud bang that reverberates through empty corridors. These movements are unpredictable, occurring at all hours of the day or night, and often coincide with other paranormal phenomena, such as flickering lights or whispers. The door activity creates a sense that the mansion itself is alive, interacting with visitors in subtle but unmistakable ways. Lights throughout the mansion also behave mysteriously. Chandeliers may dim or flicker without electrical cause, lamps turn on or off spontaneously, and reflections cast shadows that do not align with the physical objects in the room. Visitors have reported that the lighting often seems to respond to movement, with bulbs flickering as they walk past, or panels darkening in the rooms they enter. These occurrences enhance the overall sense of disorientation, leaving guests feeling as though the mansion is shifting around them, guided by forces beyond their understanding. Whispers are another recurring phenomenon. Guests often hear faint murmurs echoing through empty rooms, words indistinct yet carrying emotion of pleading, warning, or lamenting. The sounds appear to drift from walls, ceilings, or hallways, sometimes following visitors as they move from room to room. Guests attempting to locate the source often find nothing, yet the voices persist, heightening the feeling that Oak Ridge Hall is not merely haunted by echoes, but by entities actively engaged with those who enter. Some have described whispers that seem to respond to questions or actions, creating an unnerving impression of communication with unseen beings. The Mansiona-esque grand ballrooms and corridors are particularly active areas. Large, open spaces amplify sounds, allowing footsteps, murmurs, or creaking floorboards to carry far. Guests have reported feeling unseen eyes tracking them as they move through these areas. And some describe sudden, inexplicable movements of furniture or objects, as if the spirits are replaying moments of the past. These spaces, once filled with laughter, music, and gatherings, now resonate with the presence of shadows and echoes. A reminder that memory lingers in every corner. Even the upper floors and side wings of Oak Ridge Hall are filled with activity. Visitors report feeling followed, or sensing a presence just out of reach, as though someone is moving through the same space in parallel. Mirrors, reflective surfaces, and polished floors frequently reveal fleeting images of figures, only for them to vanish when directly observed, reinforcing the sense that the mansion exists simultaneously in the past and present. Local lore suggests that Oak Ridge Hall is haunted by former residents, staff, and guests whose lives remain tethered to the estate. The consistent sightings of shadowy figures, doors moving on their own, flickering lights, and whispers in empty rooms all point to a house alive with memory and spirit. Visitors leave with the impression that Oak Ridge Hall is more than a preserved historic mansion. It is a living archive of its past, where the presence of those who came before continues to linger, interact, and watch. Guests recount experiences that linger long after they leave. Shadows gliding through corridors. Doors slamming without cause. Lights flickering without cause. And whispers echoing in abandoned rooms. Oak Ridge Hall is not merely a testament to architectural beauty or historical significance. It is a place where the past moves, watches, and reaches out, leaving each visitor with a lasting sense that the mansion itself is alive with unseen presences. Every shadow, every flicker of light, every whisper reminds those who enter that Oak Ridge Hall is a home to both history and the lingering spirits of its former inhabitants. Rosewood Estate in Macon is a grand historic mansion, its elegant architecture and sweeping corridors evoking the opulence of a bygone era. Yet beneath its stately charm lies a reputation steeped in the supernatural. Guests and visitors frequently report ghostly children playing in the hallways, shadowy figures gliding silently through rooms, whispers that drift from unseen corners, and cold drafts that chill even the warmest spaces. Rosewood Estate is more than a historic home. It is a place where the echoes of the past persist, moving alongside the present and leaving a lasting impression on all who enter. From the moment visitors step through the Estatea's front doors, there is a noticeable shift in the atmosphere. The air seems heavier, carrying a subtle chill that can creep along the floors and walls. Even on sunny days, certain rooms remain uncomfortably cold, and these areas often coincide with locations where ghostly activity is most frequently reported. Guests describe feeling sudden drafts brushing against their arms or shoulders, fleeting yet unmistakable, creating the sense that unseen presences are nearby. These sensations set the stage for the more overt hauntings that have made Rosewood Estate infamous. Ghostly children are among the most frequently encountered apparitions. Visitors often report seeing small, indistinct figures moving through hallways or across rooms, sometimes playing games that seem to repeat endlessly. Some describe hearing the faint sound of laughter, the soft patter of tiny footsteps, or the rustle of fabric as these figures pass. Others have observed children pausing momentarily to glance toward visitors before vanishing into walls or shadows. One guest recounted standing in the main corridor when the sound of laughter echoed behind her. Yet when she turned, the space was empty. The combination of movement, sound, and sudden disappearance creates an unsettling but fascinating experience for those who witness it. Whispering voices frequently accompany the presence of these phantom children. Guests report hearing murmurs in rooms and hallways, often unintelligible, yet filled with a sense of emotion. The whispers appear to drift from unexpected locations, a corner of a room, behind a closed door, or even from above in stairwells. Some visitors describe following the sounds in an attempt to locate the source, only to find empty chambers, reinforcing the notion that these voices belong not to the living, but to spirits tethered to the mansion. At times, the whispers seem to interact with the living, pausing when approached and resuming once the visitor moves away, giving the impression of deliberate, if elusive, communication. Shadowy shapes are another common phenomenon. Guests often see dark, indistinct forms gliding along walls or moving across hallways. These figures can appear anywhere within the estate, from grand parlors to forgotten chambers, and frequently vanish when observed directly. Some visitors have reported seeing shadows in the reflection of mirrors or polished furniture, only for the image to disappear the moment they turn to look. The combination of these fleeting visual experiences with the sounds of laughter and whispers amplifies the eerie sense that the estate is alive with the presence of its former occupants. Doors and furniture within Rosewood Estate sometimes behave in ways that defy explanation. Doors may creak open or close on their own, even when latched securely. And occasional shifts in furniture suggest movement by unseen hands. These disturbances are often subtly a chair slightly out of place, a door that swings slowly on its hinges, but they contribute to a pervasive feeling that the mansion itself is aware of those who enter. Visitors report that these occurrences often coincide with sightings of shadows or the sound of whispers, as if multiple aspects of the estate's haunting are interconnected. The mansiona's hallways, often long and lined with polished wood and ornate decorations, amplify the sounds and presence of these phenomena. Some guests describe feeling as though unseen hands brush past them while walking through these halls, an experience that is both fleeting and unmistakably tactile. Others report the sensation of being followed, the soft echo of footsteps mirroring their own movements, intensifying the sense of presence and observation. Even the exterior grounds contribute to the estate's haunting reputation. Rosewood's south expansive gardens, terraces, and walkways provide vantage points from which visitors glimpse the mansiona's windows and halls. Figures are occasionally seen moving behind curtains or along hallways, disappearing before they can be fully observed. The interplay of fading daylight, long shadows, and the mansiona's historic architecture creates an atmosphere in which the line between reality and memory blurs, making the estate's ghostly activity feel both immediate and inescapable. Local lore suggests that Rosewood Estate is haunted by children and former residents, spirits bound to the mansion by memory, unfinished business, or untimely deaths. The recurring cold drafts, shadowy figures, whispered voices, and laughter all point to a house alive with memory, where the past continues to unfold alongside the present. Guests leave the estate with the impression that they have not merely explored a historic home, but walked through a living chronicle of its spectral inhabitants. Visitors to Rosewood Estate recount experiences that linger long after leaving. Ghostly children moving through hallways, whispers in empty rooms, shadowy figures vanishing when approached, and unexplained cold drafts that trace their path. These phenomena combine to create a hauntingly immersive experience. Rosewood Estate is not merely a historic mansion. It is a place where memory, spirit, and presence converge. Each shadow, each whisper, each fleeting figure reminds guests that the past at Rosewood is never truly gone. It continues to play, watch, and move through the halls for those willing to witness it. Willow Manor in Atlanta stands as a grand testament to the city's historic elegance, its sprawling architecture and ornate interiors capturing the imagination of all who approach. Yet beyond its stately beauty lies a presence that has long captivated and unsettled visitors. Shadowy figures glide silently through the halls, whispers drift through empty rooms, and guests frequently report an unshakable sensation of being watched. Willow Manor is widely regarded as one of the city's most haunted estates, a place where the line between the living and the dead seems to blur, and where spirits linger, trapped in the mansiona's echoing corridors, waiting for those who dare to enter. From the first step across the menorah's threshold, there is a shift in atmosphere. Even on warm days, certain rooms remain unnaturally chilly, and drafts seem to follow visitors as they move through the house. Many guests describe feeling a light brush against their arms or shoulders, fleeting yet unmistakable, creating the impression that unseen presences are not merely observing, but interacting with them. These sensations set the stage for the more overt paranormal activity that permeates Willow Manor. Shadow figures are the most frequently reported phenomenon. Guests often glimpse dark, indistinct shapes moving along hallways, drifting silently across rooms, or appearing near doorways and staircases. These figures rarely remain long enough to be fully recognized. They vanish the moment one tries to approach or focus on them. Some visitors report seeing figures standing motionless at the end of a corridor, their presence heavy and imposing, only for them to dissolve into the shadows seconds later. In the grand ballrooms, fleeting apparitions are often reported gliding across polished floors, as if reenacting dances from the menorah's past. These visions leave a lingering sense of observation, as though the spirits are simultaneously present and untouchable. Whispers fill the air throughout the manor, often seeming to originate from empty rooms or hidden corners. Guests report hearing fragmented conversations, faint murmurs, or indecipherable words, sometimes calling out their names or responding to their movements. The whispers vary in tonia, some plaintive, others urgent, or tinged with sadness. But they are always unsettling. Visitors describe following the sounds in an attempt to locate the source, only to discover empty spaces. The whispers seem to float independently of the physical structure, drifting from room to room as if carried by invisible currents, reinforcing the notion that the manor itself is alive with residual presence. Doors and furniture also appear to move without explanation. Guests have reported doors creaking open or slamming shut on their own, sometimes coinciding with the appearance of shadowy figures or whispered voices. Chairs, cabinets, and small objects occasionally shift subtly, leaving visitors questioning whether they truly witnessed movement or merely sensed it. These occurrences contribute to the pervasive feeling that Willow Manor is not simply a historical house, but a living, breathing entity, inhabited by spirits that refuse to remain hidden. The sensation of being watched is nearly universal among visitors. Even when alone in a room, many describe the feeling of unseen eyes following their every movement. Some feel the weight of an invisible presence nearby, a sensation that can be simultaneously subtle and overwhelming. Guests report instances of pausing mid-step, sensing a shadow behind them, only to find the room empty when they turn. These experiences leave a profound impression, reinforcing the idea that the spirits of Willow Manor are not passive echoes, but active participants in the house's atmosphere. The upper floors and abandoned wings are particularly active. Bedrooms, studies, and long-forgotten chambers frequently exhibit stronger cold spots, intensified whispers, and more pronounced shadow movements. Visitors exploring these areas often describe the feeling of being trailed, footsteps echoing in tandem with their own, or fleeting figures appearing in mirrors and reflective surfaces. The apparitions seen here often appear as partial silhouettes, their forms blurred at the edges, enhancing the sense that they belong to a world that exists alongside, yet separate from, our own. Even the exterior grounds contribute to the mansiona's haunted reputation. The sprawling gardens, terrace lawns, and shaded walkways provide vantage points where guests have glimpsed figures moving behind windows or disappearing into the house. At twilight, the interplay of long shadows, fading sunlight, and the menorah's towering facades amplifies the sense of mystery and unease. Visitors approaching the house often feel as though they are being observed from within, and those inside may catch the briefest flicker of a figure at a window, vanishing before it can be fully identified. Local lore suggests that Willow Manor is haunted by spirits trapped between the living world and the afterlife. The shadow figures, whispers, moving doors, and sensations of unseen observation are thought to be manifestations of these entities. Unable to leave the house, their presence bound to its walls and halls. Guests frequently leave with stories of experiences that linger in memory long after departure. From glimpsed figures in corridors to whispered words that echo in the mind. Visitors to Willow Manor recount experiences that are as unnerving as they are compelling. Shadowy forms gliding through halls. Doors moving of their own accord. Whispers echoing in empty rooms. And the constant sensation of being watched combine to create an immersive and haunting atmosphere. Willow Manor is more than a historic mansion. It is a realm where the past and present coexist, where spirits linger in perpetual observation, and where each visitor becomes part of its continuing story. Every shadow, every whisper, every chill in the air is a reminder that here, history is not silenta. The past watches, waits, and moves through the Mansiona's halls, inviting the living to bear witness. These are the haunted mansions of Georgia, built over forgotten graves, where shadows move silently, whispers echo through hallways, and spirits refuse to rest. If you ever walk through these mansions at night, listen closely. Shadowy figures may appear at the edges of